All right. Man, there's already chat. I figured start earlier because it's the day after Christmas and probably a lot of people aren't working. And if a lot of people aren't working, there'll probably be a lot of people here. So welcome to Vlog Thursday 416. We're 4 away from an internet funny number. And we all love internet funny numbers. Bearded IT Dad, good morning.
Hold on a second. What internet funny number comes after 416?
Well, we're 4 away from the internet funny number.
Oh, nice.
Catching on time. Awesome. Is it common security practice not to route storage? I'm learning, would like to know more. I've done the video called, it's a storage design video, and it's partially about security. Oh, hold on, let me mute my phone real quick. But the storage design video, I'm going to drop a link here in a second here. It is partially about security because some storage mediums expect to be, like NFS doesn't have, it's a lot of work to set up Kerberos and NFS, and most of the time you're never going to do it. You just put it on a separate network and then you don't have to worry about securing it. So I have my video on storage design, and that's where I dive deeper into it. But yeah, so partially security, mostly performance is the bigger deal, if you will, for the issues regarding it, I guess you could say. All right, cool. So I forgot to mute my phone. Usually I didn't expect too many people to call me on a Thursday, day after Christmas, but they do. So good evening from the UK. Mute watch as well. I don't want any of these notices. It's not, well, yes, it's more about performance and less about security, but there is some security things to think about when you're doing this. Routed storage gets really slow. Absolutely. Merry Boxing Day. Yes. What if routed storage is layer 3 switch for no latency? I mean, yes, kind of, but the reality is if you route it, there's latency. The moving of it between a switch can cause latency. The more expensive switches cause less latency. And I've seen people do this where they want a switch to do the routing for the storage. And I'm like, okay, as long as your budget will buy the switch that has no or less latency and better performance, sure. You can actually run storage on a lesser switch, though, by not incorporating a non-routed design in your storage. It's really weird. I never thought this of a controversial topic, but it comes up a lot about routing storage. And part of the reason it comes up, and I'm happy that it's coming up, because do you know how many times we've brought into consulting projects where people spent a lot of money and are realizing their performance is terrible? And we look at it and we're like, why are you routing all the storage? I mean, like large nationwide companies, large VMware deployments with 200 virtual machines, not Homelab users. I'm looking at commercial enterprise companies that are having problems. And I'm just like, yeah, or, routing them through their firewall. I would have never thought to do that. I was like, I'm impressed it works as well as it does. What's my favorite Linux distro for daily use? Depends a little bit on the context. For my desktop, I haven't had any reason not to keep using Pop! OS as I have been for years. And Pop! OS just works really, really well, really feels polished, and I just don't have any issues with it for my use case. And by the way, my use case is above average in terms of, not talking about gaming. Obviously, gaming, that's a whole different animal. But in terms of my use case, I do all my video editing and everything in Linux. So Pop! OS for my desktop works great. For all my other servers, I just build everything off of Debian because I like it. It's predictable. It works well. There's no stupid snap package problems, because once I realized that they were, and I don't know the current status, if they fixed this or not in Ubuntu. But once Ubuntu started really pushing snap packages and all the problems they created for people with snap packages and Docker, and the fact that they were redirecting an apt-get install Docker to snap install Docker was enough to make me go, why am I pulling my hair out and having extra drama when Debian works? So Debian 12, current version, that's pretty much my go-to for all my server stuff. I mean, I know people that use it on desktop, and I'm sure that's fine. I just like the extra integration and polish I get with Pop! OS. Matter of fact, even on this Lenovo system I have right now, it will do firmware updates and it works. And maybe this works well just in Ubuntu in general. I haven't used Ubuntu on a desktop in years. So Ubuntu would be my fallback if for some reason you didn't like, for reasons I can't understand. There's always that one person that finds this one esoteric thing that they didn't like that System 76, the people in charge of Pop! OS, have done. But for me, it's Pop! OS. So it would be better to have my TrueNAS on its own LAN or VLAN, defining access roles. Well, yeah, this is one of the reasons many NASs have multiple network cards in them. That's common with all your higher end Synologies. They always come with more than one network card, and it's kind of like what you think here. It's the fact that you want more network interfaces, and that's what I'm doing right now. Is going to share a screen. Literally, this is what I was doing today before I was getting on the live stream, is setting this up. Let me actually kill the banners because they're going to cover up things. There we go. But I was setting up another Synology. But if you storage pool 1 missing. Yup. Because I broke it. Let's see. What are we going to do here? We're going to rebuild it. So storage. Can I delete this missing pool? Where's the delete option? Detected. Create storage pool. Do I want a RAID 6 or a RAID 10? I'll let the audience choose. What are we going with, audience? RAID 6, RAID 10, or RAID 5? I have, there's 5 1 terabyte SSDs in this. So the audience gets to pick. I wasted 2 500 gig SSDs to create a mirrored TrueNAS scale boot pool because I couldn't find anything smaller. Yeah, that's it. It's barely worth it to try and find smaller. It's hard to find smaller ones out there, and the 500s are so cheap, but you don't even use them all. I have not tried the new Cosmic. It looks pretty cool. I know a lot of people like Cinnamon Desktop, and I don't have a problem with it. Do you have any best practice for Debian server videos? I always use Ubuntu because it seems a little more pre-configured with base utils. I don't know. Maybe I should start doing some videos about that. I don't think as much about it. I don't have, like Jay from Learn Like TV has a really good install script for setting up servers. I am so basic. I just apt-get install the same utilities with the script and don't really Ansible my way into a setup. I also don't set up that many new ones. I template them off of one. I have one that I keep running all the time that auto updates, and I stop it and clone it whenever I want to make something. That's been my go-to solution. Maybe I should cover how I do that, and that would be a simpler process for people. So that's really a good idea for a video. Western Digital or Seagate, what do you deploy in your production client projects? It's usually one of the two. We seem to have been doing more Seagate lately than Western Digital, but I don't have really a problem with either of them. We buy a lot of the large scale storage servers from 45 drives, which will come with Seagate. Seems to be the more popular choice. We haven't had that many issues with Seagate to stop me from buying more of them. And I am going to do a video soon about buying drives because this is a common topic. And I'm glad that I didn't even know this is just coincidental. Me and Wendell both have found that Server Part Deals has been a great place. I've been buying a lot of drives from them. Best Linux distro for kids. I don't know. Kids are generally, depending on their determination, pretty technical on things. So I would probably say the Ubuntu based ones are pretty good. I think we have more people voting for RAID 10. So I got 1, 2. Oh no, there's a lot of 5s in here as well. Look at my storage design video that I posted a link for. That's the more elaborate, longer video on Don't Route Storage. 666. So what do we have a count of for the most here? It seems like most people want me to do RAID 5. Can you do, what's wrong with the MinIO video I have, I guess would be the question. What am I missing in the MinIO video that needs to be in a new one? Because MinIO hasn't changed that much. I mean, it's probably got a few new features, but I don't think it's changed that much. Yeah, I've got some Iron Wolf drives as well. Matter of fact, I was going to post about that and joke about that. Inside you, there are 2 Iron Wolves. They are the same. They are mirrored. 10. So, man, it's hard to keep count here. It's hard to keep count. Did RAID 5 or RAID 10 win here? I think, do we have an even number of RAID 5 and 10 people? So 1, 2, 3, 4 people. Yeah, can you do, is there a way to do a poll in here? There's a question. No, stream. I see Matt in the background shaking his head. I think it's even. Yeah. Well, what would make the people the most angry? There's the other option. Let's just go for a RAID 0 setup. Is RAID 0? Is it the better option now? Yeah. All right, we'll go with RAID 10. I think RAID 10 was what I was going to choose. Oh, now we got to give it a name. RAID 0 for the lulz. Yeah. So we'll do RAID 10. This is going to be a temporary setup on here. There we go. Actually, I don't want to waste the drive, so we'll go RAID 5. That was the next one. RAID 5. Sure. Will this delete storage pool? All right, now we got to get rid of, how do we get rid of storage pool 1? Wait, why is one of the drives not in this? Was this a 6 drive system? I've already forgot. Oh, there's 6 drives in here. I should just reset this thing. I've done played around too much. Oh, let's see. Was there another question in here? Yes, live dangerously. I'm getting ready to install XCP&G in my dual Xeon workstation with 64 gig RAM. Should I also install it on my spare system for resource pooling? I mean, if you really want to learn XCP&G, that's definitely a way to do it. I need a more specific question in am I using? Are you talking about specifically trying to use the network auth? And matter of fact, let me find this article because someone reached out to us about this, and let me find the link. Where did it go? I thought this was kind of a funny juxtaposition here because people ask a lot about this, and someone reached out to us consulting, trying to make a bunch of combinations of switches, not even homogenized network. Like we have some of these models from Extreme, and we have lots of problems with our Extreme networks, and we're trying to integrate our broken Extreme networks with a UniFi system. And one of the things I pointed out is they have Extreme Networks is even kind of saying, what's the future look like? The latest Gartner research highlights the rise of universal zero trust and the decline of traditional network access controls. The complexity of the NAC system. So we don't, my problem often is people are trying to solve the wrong problems with them, and it's not changing their security posture that much versus they add a lot of complexity to their system. So I always try to figure out, do you really need it? I mean, there's a great video, my friend over at Appleard's Adventure. I want to say it's how I say his name. If he did a great video on NAC. Let me share that with people here. Where's his NAC video? So I will share this for people that want to watch it. He breaks down everything that goes into a NAC system. But one of the things I like to point out, and the reason his video is as long as it is because there's a lot of complexity to it. The question always comes down to, do you need that level of complexity in your network? What is the problem you're trying to solve? Maybe the answer is yes. I'm not saying the answer is no, but I always start with what is the minimum needed to build out and support. And it doesn't mean we go for the most complicated solution right away. What are my thoughts on UniFi NAS? I like the UniFi NAS quite a bit. I think the UniFi NAS works really well. I think the problem people have with UniFi NAS is I see people complaining it doesn't have enough features, but the feature that justifies why I think it's a good NAS is the $499 is a feature that sacrifices other features. $499 for something with 10 gigs in it, and I know it's an odd number, 7 drives, but that's not a bad thing. I think that's a hard price point to beat for a reliable storage server with all the features that it comes with. It's one of those things like there's trade-offs that have been made to get that price that low. Yeah. Based on certain or endpoints network auth. And there becomes a whole nother set of fun when you add all the certificates in there. And you want to make sure you're doing RADSec, not radius, because there's been flaws found in a radius that are now active exploits for. So yeah, there's insecurity. And by the way, complexity is the enemy of security, because the fact that the NAC system having a radius deployment that's not using the proper radius security actually opens up a new attack vector into your network that you're trying to secure by using 802.1x authentication. Hey, Tom, as the season in your family just completed a ZF migration to some new drives. Awesome. Yeah, I think I'm just going to reset this because I'm trying to build 2 pools, and it's probably not going well. It seems like, can I just delete this pool? Remove. There we go. That's what I needed to do. Submit. Sweet. That's going now. I don't use elementary OS, so I don't really have an opinion on it. Have you tried Exadium or other EDR systems you can review on with EDR products? Haven't even heard of that one before. And the problem with trying out commercial products is it just takes a lot of time. I've gotten where more and more companies keep reaching out to me, wanting me to try it. And I've told them, for me to do a real thorough one, give me like $50,000 and I'll have all my techs set up entire networks and Active Directory and a series of servers. And then I'll have some of my other friends that do pen testing poke at it and see if they can get around it. That's the only way to do a valid test. So it becomes like I can't afford to do that without someone paying me. It's just too it's too hard. So when it comes to all these different ones, I don't really have any way to thoroughly check them. It just takes too long and it's too much work. So whether or not this is a good platform, no idea. One of the things I go by more frequently is who works there. That's like one of my biggest things that I will go by is who is working at that company, because that will be a better idea of how good they are. You know, there's a metric that's just not easily tracked with security companies. Huntress is an easy example of this. Only because I know and have worked with Huntress for a very long time, I'm very aware of how capable they are. Matter of fact, this is a metric that is much harder to describe when it comes to security company. Huntress may, but this is not an easy thing to track, may have the most employees that did Black Hack talks at the same conference. The number of people they had that had accepted talks that were done at DEF CON and Black Hat, or I can't remember if it was both, mostly DEF CON, but I think there were a couple of Black Hat. Either way, the number of accepted talks they had was pretty impressive. And that's an interesting thing because that means they employ some of the top tier people for threat detection engineering. That's one of the reasons we like Blumera. I went to Blumera because I knew the threat detection engineer and I'm like, oh, she's working there. She works at cool places. And then I happen to be that one of my sales friends who also works at cool places was there. And I'm like, okay, cool. This is what helps me choose a product. I know it's not the best metric for choosing a product, or a harder metric to do. Yes. There's a regular beep noise. That beep noise is weird that you can hear it because I don't hear it. I just learned my system has IDRIC IPMI. Have you used it? It's built in Network Hardware Manager. Is it useful for security risk? It's useful. Keep that on a separate network because obviously if someone gets a hold of it, definitely a security risk. But I love the IDRAC stuff. It works great. It works very much the same way. So the teleport system inside of UniFi is similar to, in not all the ways, but at least generally similar to how Tailscale works. It's a cool feature. Now we're back at this screen. We have 6 drives. We'll RAID 5 of them. That gives me plenty of storage. But I can RAID 10 them now. Next, definitely Btrfs. Don't care about encryption. Not for what's going to be on here. This is all just lab stuff. There we go. Optimizing. We'll let it do its magic. Actually, it does have 2 more drives in here to add if I wanted as well. There's a SSD cache. We'll add these as well. Mount volume 1. Sure, why not? All right, cool. See how that performs now. If you didn't, if I didn't already build a backup NAS, you get a UNAS. Hi, is it a problem to have 1 gig router when other LAN equipment is 2.5 gig? Well, the challenge you run into is you're not going to go into a speed. Your speed limitation on the network is going to be 2.5 gig, but your speed limitation on your exiting or entering data is going to be 1 gig. Is that a problem? I mean, if you don't have an internet connection that's that fast, for example, my internet connection is only 700 or 800. So it doesn't even matter how fast my router is in terms of connectivity. It's a 1 gig. I have a 1 gig interface on my router, but it doesn't really affect me any. Is UniFi yes SATA only? The data sheet on the website doesn't specify. Yes, it's SATA only. Hey everyone, half working and half lurking today. I think the beeping was the Synology rebooting. It makes a beep sound. Why not SHR2? SHR2 is not available. I only have SHR1 available on here. I probably could do it that as well. I don't know. I should do this. Might be a fun thing because this is just a lab system. That's why I was able to format it without thinking about it or consequences, so to speak. How many hours are left here? What I'm curious about will be the performance. Maybe I'll do a performance test with, what did I set it to? RAID 5, and then I'll wipe it and do a performance test with SHR. I feel like I did this before, but it's been a while. So it'll be interesting to see which one and then do a comparison of it. That might be kind of a fun thing to test. For now, it's got hour and 28 minutes left to finish whatever it's doing. I'll agree to all the terms and services here. Oh, it needs everything repaired. Uninstall. I probably should have just reset. I'm thinking actually now reset would have been easier than. Is there a group uninstall I can do? Or a manual reinstall? I don't want to have to click 25 times. Doesn't appear to be a way. Settings. Well, 24 more times of clicking this, but that's not a today problem. Let's see. The beep story screen capture thing, you can tell when a presenter is clicking a mouse button. I don't think so. I'm always clicking. If it beeped every time I clicked, I'd drive everybody crazy, me included. Yes, is it a problem if I have a 56K modem, live in a family with 6 kids on one landline? Yes. I wonder, can you even still get dial-up these days? Probably. I built an N100 based on TrueNAS so I could run with RAID with ZFS. I worry about how to get my data back if I use a proprietary NAS or something hardware failed. You know, there is a little bit of that as a concern. If you use some of the weirder NASs, I'm talking like more of the consumer ones. I'll assume the majority of them run standard Linux RAID on the back end. I'm assuming though, and that's kind of assuming a lot. So how would you be able to recover data? Probably, maybe, but you always should be preparing for catastrophic failure. So having all your data on one NAS, and I have a whole line of shirts that says this, RAID is not a backup, and don't rely on just one NAS at any given moment because something catastrophic would fail. But in terms of concern, yeah, the consumer ones, I mean, universally, all the ones I've ever seen are always running RAID on the back end, but of course, it's just Linux RAID, so it's usually something that can be sorted out, but it's not a guarantee. I'm trying running Proxmox VMs on my TrueNAS storage server or NFS. Sync rates are painfully slow. 4 spinners, 2 mirrored pairs. How? Yes. If you add, you don't need multiple. Probably one really fast slog is what you need, or you can turn off the sync rates. The sync rates means you could potentially lose a maximum of about 5 seconds of data under catastrophic conditions. So if the perfect storm hits and you have sync turned off, that means the write was said to be committed, but actually isn't committed. So you could end up with a 5 seconds of data loss provided you turn syncs off. And that is up to you to take the risk. The other option is adding a slog. But the reality is the slog drive has to be fast, probably NVMe to really get any performance out of it. 4 spinners, I mean, SSD will help some. NVMe is definitely the way to go. A pair of them probably won't add too much performance difference to it. But if you want better performance, turn off sync writes and you'll probably find it jumps up quite a bit. Yeah, there's some videos I'm going to do upcoming on that to show the difference, but yeah, that's definitely it doesn't get the performance. It usually doesn't get people what they want in terms of performance. Performance impact of encryption on TrueNAS CPU and transfer speeds affected by much. Also, difference between AES 256 and CCM. The default offer GCM. So I usually use the default because it's going to be the more optimized one. I haven't looked in a while to see where the performance difference is between the two, but so much of the performance difference is going to be dependent on the CPU. Do you have a CPU that can handle that? And it doesn't take that modern of one, but for example, I will pull up my TrueNAS, and I want people to look this up, and we'll look it up together maybe, I don't know, to have a good discussion. I turned off encryption on mine, and the reason I did is because the processor in mine is a Intel Atom C3578. So let's go ahead and look that up real quick. So here's the C3578, and let's just say that is a sad number. This is a sadder number for single thread. And this processor has been around, I don't know when it was first released, but it's at least been documented since 2020. So it's a 4-year-old processor now. Matter of fact, if we did another search for it, when did Intel release this? I think it was longer ago. Yeah, Intel says 2017. So on my system, I found that to be a bottleneck, but my processor is also pushing 8 years now in 2025. So I find that I just didn't want to encrypt anything that I cared about performance. I encrypt the stuff that I care about encrypting, but like my videos, I don't encrypt. The reason I don't encrypt them, they end up on YouTube. So what are you going to do with them unencrypted if someone were to get access to my server? Tom, I'm gonna finish editing and publishing these videos if you don't pay extortion. Oh no, please don't. I mean, There's all my unencrypted stuff are just all my YouTube videos. The worst case scenario, if someone got a hold of my videos, I play these scenarios out in my head, is that I have stuff that maybe is recorded but doesn't have a release date. And the release date as in I've actually recorded some video for some UniFi equipment that isn't released yet. I would be in violation of that if someone were to steal, edit, and post those videos. By the way, anything that this is the weirdest part about being a UniFi creator that we kind of joke around about, like me and several other YouTubers that you may watch talk about UniFi, that we get early access to things. Anything that we report, you've already probably found in a several different leak sites or subreddits that post about the details. There's several blogs that post more details ahead of the release, and because they're not, so that's okay. I'm done ranting on that. Not a big concern, but if you need it encrypted, it's going to be dependent on CPU. Modern CPUs seem to have no problem. There's no discernible real speed performance difference on there. How does the cost of Synology NAS using compared to a UNAS equivalent? Synology is probably more expensive than UNAS. I've not really researched it, but I'm just going out on a limb here that it costs more. Let me pull up a UNAS. I haven't really looked at the UNASs at all, so I don't know. I know a lot of people review them, but I have not, so I don't have. Or actually, are you asking about the UNAS? There's a company called UNAS, isn't there? Or are you talking about the Ubiquity NAS? Because there's no comparison to the features of a Synology compared to a Synology. Synology NAS, way, way, way more features than the UniFi NAS. So that's not really a fair comparison. There's a beep on every click. That's weird. I've addressed this too many times now. Watch my storage design video that you'll find in a chat. It's already been posted, or rewind because I've explained it a few times now. All the way from Poland. Awesome. I've got a lot of knowledge from YouTube channel. Thanks. Awesome. Appreciate it as well. I've seen those Ray-Ban glasses. I don't know. Not that interested in them. Yeah, sometimes we've used the self-encrypting drives. There are circumstances where that's been used. Yes. Yeah, I just did a recent Synology video, and I actually had two recent Synology videos. One about all the applications in Synology, but another one recently comparing it to TrueNAS. Yeah, these CPUs are old, but one of the things that is a lesson learned is when the Intel Atom had that model that only lasted X amount of time. There's a nervousness if you're a manufacturer that if you get a problematic CPU in your production line, how do you recall a production line that's now started shipping product to people? And this is why companies generally lean on a little bit older hardware that had some field testing done, because they don't want to discover the bugs. It's really hard to discover all the bugs that may exist. That Intel Atom problem that we had several years ago was a nightmare. Biggest cluster of servers I deployed? I don't know. I've never really counted. I mean, we've done data center ones. So having worked in data center level work, recently very recently, like it just shipped out Monday. We just shipped out all these servers Monday, and there's each one of these, there's 4 units, 1, 2, 3, 4 units, and there's 4 servers in each one. So 4 times 4 is a lot of servers. I'm convinced my coworker to get himself a PF Sense with a knowledge dump. Awesome. Looking forward to 2025. Yes. Yeah, these are operating here as a cluster, and these are all pretty high end. Where is the specs on these? Somewhere. Let's see. These have I think they have 0.5 terabyte in RAM on each one. It's so confusing reading the spec sheet. That's actually the problem. So I don't. So each, okay, we got to do some math here. There's 24, each unit has 24 64 gig DDR5s in it. So 24 times 64 gig, or 24 times 64 gigs. Get a calculator.
1536.
15. So each unit has 1.5 terabytes of RAM. So there's 6 terabytes of memory in here. Processor, though, at least that's a little bit easier to figure out. I'll pull that up real quick. That I can find. And they're dual processors. They're actually, there's cool. There's a CPU benchmark for these. They're EPYC 9254s. So these are all AMD EPYC servers in that picture. Fancy system. So definitely one of the bigger ones on there. No, these are. This is the back. So each of these is a server. So this is a server. This is a server. That's a server. That's a server. These are the power supplies in the middle. So each 2U unit has 4 servers in it. I got a picture of what it looks like opened up. This is what they look like on the inside. These are what the blades look like. This is what each individual blade looks like. So there's your dual CPUs in each one. So this is a super high density storage server. Yeah, and I mean, it's loaded. There is a lot. I mean, it's completely filled. These things are pretty slick. There's the controller. There's the network card in the back. I don't think I have much video of it. This is the edge connector. It's kind of scary looking with all the pins. That's the power supply, though. The power supply slides out of the middle. So there's the one unit, and there's where the power supply goes in the middle. It's pretty cool. These are super micros. Yeah, the model on these. Let me find the model on it. It's in one of these. It'll be down in the other part. Hold on. Should be in here. There we go. Pull it all up. Yes, this is an on-prem server. Do I have... You can actually pull up the Supermicro sketch for this. It's pretty slick. It's just a really neat system. Here, if anyone wants to follow along and look at the PDF on there. For those wondering, though, this is running XCP-NG. This is it. The customer has a rack in a data center. That's where all of this is living. Oh, I never really looked at the SATA NVMe backplane. That's kind of cool. I did not take it all the way apart. These things are, this is like a few $100,000 worth of servers. So I chose not to take it apart. But the part number, is there a, I like it then when I search in Google, it actually comes up with my post on this. Because these are there's not many people that have reviewed these, I guess. They're the Supermicro. I think they're called Big Twins. It's funny. The search actually lands on my LinkedIn post with that in there. So I guess I have higher SEO than that. I'm going to try out Image pretty soon. Right now, most of my photos are in Synology Photo, and my social media photos are in Google Drive or Google Photos. The reason I use Google Photos is it's really easy because I use Google for my business. So I have all the non-personal pictures of servers that get shared on social media because people go, well, aren't you worried about, Google and misbehaving with your data and privacy? I'm like, I post on social media all the photos that go in here. If Google were to lose them, they'd be doing me a favor and distributing them. So it's not a risk scenario for me. I appreciate Supermicro system layouts. Our org has new task clusters, and the hardware is just rebadged Supermicro. Yeah, Supermicro makes a lot of servers for a lot of companies, and it's that didn't work. There we go. Network error. Oh, I was first excited, thought it fixed itself. Wow, there's so many things installed on this. This was a lab system, and I should have just reset the system. This is the lesson we learned at this live stream. Tom, just reset the system. say that. Interesting. Back to something I want to pull up. Yeah, I definitely, Image is one of the ones that a lot of people have recommended. It's on my want to try list because it looks like a really good product or open source option. Now, something else I'm going to do. Let's throw this up here. So many overlays. That's not the right overlay. Homelab overlay. That's not the right one. Or is it? I think it is. We got the right one now. There we go. Homelab at lawrencesystems.com. I'm setting this up so people can email me and make it easier. Well, I set it up, I should say. I want to do a lot more Homelab stuff, and I try to reply to everybody, and it's not about tech support. Someone actually had something really interesting they pointed out, and I asked them, they've used my older one, Vlog Thursday, and that still exists, but I think Homelab at lawrencesystems.com, people are looking for ways to contact me, and I don't mind. I actually want me. I'd like it if you'd send me an email or a picture of your home lab. I think that's great. It's hard because I understand completely why. As social media has just become a giant cesspool, I'm still on there because I do interact with people who are still there, but it's crazy the numbers, how they're just dropping fast. And I don't blame people. Social media has just been more and more broken. This is one of the reasons I always built my own platform, which is my forums. That way I had a platform by which things can live on, and that's been good, but not everyone wants to sign up for the forums. So they tag me on social media, but email is still that go-to federated. I meet so many really smart engineering people, and they're like, I don't touch social media. One of them told me they didn't have a smartphone, and I was like, that's clever. Like you've figured out life. Like they're like, no, I have a dumb phone. I do not want to be tracked. I do not want to be engaged in surveillance capitalism in any way. So they've just avoided much of these things. So email is still a fun thing. So Homelab at lawrencesystems.com is live for people to reach out if they want to say something. But the interesting thing someone reached out to me the other day about, and I thought this was cool. Like they said, hey, Tom, I'm almost got this set up. They found some comments. I did say something wrong in a video, and they were right about it. They said it's not a big deal because what I displayed on the screen was correct, but heads up, you used the wrong word in one video. And I'm like, okay, fair, hard, can't fix it. Good news is if anyone's looking at what's on the screen, they knew the right word. Second, I actually told them, keep in touch. They were going through and setting up OpenWRT with pfSense and WireGuard. I was like, I'm curious. I just don't have time to set that up, but I'm always curious what people are using things for, or if they have some pointers, because they couldn't find any good documentation, so they're working on it. And I'm like, well, send it to me, or do a write-up in my forums of how to get OpenWRT and WireGuard working with pfSense or UniFi, or maybe WireGuard working with OpenWRT and several other OpenWRT servers. I think that might be kind of a cool project. But I want to make sure people have some way, if they would like to contact me, they can, because I want to help more people get into the home lab. And homelab at lawrencesystems.com. It's not a tech support, by the way. I will read some stuff on the air. If you are just wanting to share knowledge, or connect with me, I'm actually, I made a new friend. He happens to live really close here. I don't know if he's on the live stream or not, but same things. They reached out via email. I'm like, oh, cool. Someone else to nerd out with. And I'm all for that. I do travel. I will go places. Or if you just want to say, hey, check out this whole rack of system I got. Awesome. I've added my Signal contact information to my website when I did the Signal video. That's been cool too. Made some new friends there. Some are overseas. Awesome. So I always like to let people know I don't mind, other than some people email me that I just say, go to my forums. They email me, hey, Tom, I don't know how VLANs work. Will you explain it? And then I'll say, I have a forum for that, or I have a video for that. But I do try to reply to a lot of people. So just wanted to throw this out here. Have you played with PMEM with NAS? I don't know what PMEM is. PMEM. Configurations on PMM 100 modules? No, I have not. I seen there's posts. It landed me in the TrueNAS forum, so other people have, but I have not. Oh yes, lots of VLAN. I plan to do some more VLAN videos for sure. Nice to catch one of these live, especially since I'm homesick. Just redesigned my network with some non-routed storage because of your videos. Awesome. Fantastic. Do be careful, and I'd have to dig this up. The latest update, I think they fixed it, but I still keep up with some of the updates at OpenSense, and it kind of validates some of the arguments I've had. They update for the sake of updating, and they broke VLANs, and it obviously caused some pain for people. I think they've now fixed that, but I'd seen people asking about it, and then someone linked me to a forum post like, hey, just send people this. There was an update to OpenSense that broke VLAN functionality. I don't know if it broke it on all of them or just certain ones, because I don't use OpenSense enough, but that's kind of common. They update a lot, and some of those updates don't go well. And updates for the sake of updates on a firewall are fun if you want bleeding edge, not fun if you don't want to bleed. I think I'm trying to work out how in depth I go. Do I just do a rant where it's just Tom, or do I reach out to people and try and really dig into? Because I like stories, but it takes so long to produce them. I watched a really good video the other day on the history of a certain, I think it's a 42-inch Sony TV. It's a really interesting video. I love the narrative and the story, but the guy, one of the things they commented on was it takes so many months to put together one story like that. So back to my topic I'm thinking about, the history of firewalls is fascinating to me. I love videos done by the YouTube channel, The Serial Report, where they kind of break down some of the history of firewalls. The downside, of course, is the time it takes to put all that together, contact people, build the narrative. I like it, but I don't know. Is this something people are interested in? Should I dig up all these people that I can try to find for open source firewalls? Will they even reply? Will they even want to be part of a video on this? But I want to document, like, I've been using open source firewalls for over 20 something years. And by the way, they're dying. We do not have near the number of choices we used to for open source firewalls. It's just been, yeah, it's just been one of those really sad things to see, that there's so many people want something for free, and there's not been a good business model around enough of them to build sustainable development. And by the way, I've ranted about this before. OpenSense is not built on sustainable development. They rely heavily on upstream BSD in order to get development. Upstream BSD is dying fast. Oh, maybe dying slow. I don't know. Depends on your perspective. Depends on what your needs are. But with it slowing down and dying, yeah, now what? What are we going to do if FreeBSD suddenly doesn't have support for any newer hardware? We just stick, between pfSense and OpenSense. What happens? And it's not good. People switch to other systems. Many companies are pulling away. Even my understanding is right. Palo Alto used to build on FreeBSD and moved everything over to Linux. And Palo Alto is not an open source company, but even like the stuff that's owned by Sophos right now, they bought the open source companies and closed sourced them. Arista did the same thing. They bought the open source version of Untangle and call it Arista Edge now, which takes one more open source firewall off the market. So yeah, so in Vios, I think Vios is cool. I just don't see the Homelab people flocking to a command line driven for any functionality firewall. Vios is really targeted at the enterprise, end of story. It's just not as targeted at all to the mid-market, or especially not targeted to the Homelab. Doesn't mean you shouldn't learn it. Like if you're a Homelabber, that means a lot of different things. You can be a Homelab person. I meet many people who have Homelabs that work at very large enterprise jobs where they use these tools. So yes, but if you're a Homelabber just going, I just want things set up, Vios is novel. I think it's cool, but it's not going to be for everyone learning a command line firewall that kind of sort of has a web interface they've been working on that, to my knowledge, and correct me if I'm wrong, still isn't there. So yeah, there's a lot. I don't know. There's a chance maybe they will rewrite it, but if they rewrite it, I don't know. Will it still be open source? I don't know. Times you're talking Jack Resider type stories. In a way, it just takes a long time to put all that together. Yeah, Vios has a crazy, I think their license fees are like $6,000 a year if you want the stable version. You have to get the cutting edge version right now is what they give you for the open source one. Yeah, it's just nightlies. I mean, this works to an extent. Yes, you can just stick the firewall inside of a virtualization. You're adding complexity. I think the next up and coming is probably going to be OpenWRT. They're building hardware. I think they're going to become a more popular option. They're not there though. It's not near feature complete compared to something like pfSense or even OpenSense. They both have way more features than OpenWRT. So yeah, I don't know. I hope not. This is my fear. That's where we're heading, is back to the black box world of what's in these things. Now, the good news is black box is a little loose here. The binaries are black box in a UniFi, but UniFi has never, and I don't see them doing this at all. UniFi lets you SSH in, which is perfect. I can SSH in, I can see what's going on. Obviously, it's not as easy to see what's going in the binaries, but the binaries, you can probably look at most of them are just standard Linux binaries. So they're not that hard to reverse engineer or figure out what they do. I think Edge OS from Ubiquiti is going to die pretty soon. I don't see no love for that particular line of products anymore. I have no idea when you'll see NetBird in pfSense. Yeah, the OpenWRT. I think there's a lot of promise in OpenWRT. I always want to say DRT, but it's just OpenWRT. For some reason, Tommy adds more words. Yeah, Vios Enterprise, $135,000 a year. I know Edge OS is still around. That's the impressive part, but it doesn't get many updates. Well, they've had the self-host UISP for a while. I don't think so. I think MikroTik builds on their own software. What is the router OS? MikroTik is router OS. And the problem with MikroTik is they're buggy, I guess you would describe it. I would not call them quirky is probably a better word. How about quirky? Oh, IP Fire. You know, IP Fire is still around. But boy, is it basic. I mean, they got a cool website. It's on fire, man. Oh, good. They had a new update. But if I'm not mistaken, one of the problems with IP Fire is very little VLAN management at all. This is where it falls apart. Like you got some zone configuration, but it only supports a couple. can you do VLAN tagging in it? So you can, but you have a limited number of VLANs you can set up. This is like one of the problems. And correct me if I'm wrong. They have the features, but they don't have it documented. I don't think there's a lot of VLAN options in here. Is the Amazon affiliate link down? Good question. There's a Matt in the background who can take a look at that. To my knowledge, it should work. Oh, Matt had to jump off. Let me look at my affiliate link. It shouldn't be down. Maybe. Yeah, that works. All right. There's my Amazon affiliate link. If I don't know what one you're looking for, but that particular one does work. Website is right off a Steven Seagal movie. Yeah, I think you can install NetBird from the CLI to make it work. I just don't know when there will be a web UI inside of pfSense. Like, will there be an official package for pfSense? Yes. Yes, I am definitely working on that. I'm rebuilding my entire lab and my whole setup, but I will be doing some getting started videos. That's actually one of the reasons I was spending time playing with Synology and everything else. I'm doing a whole lot of getting started videos that I have planned for January and February. Closing in a house, looking at setting up networking. Is there any other brand that is cohesive as Ubiquiti in regards to their products? I'm starting with a short stack setup. Honestly, no. And I've thought about doing this as a video topic, going, why is UniFi dominating the market? And it just works, and it's not very expensive, and they don't have recurring licensing fees. This is something that you would think is easy to achieve, but other companies like Cisco is a great example. Cisco is like, we're going to make a whole platform that's going to be the Ubiquiti killer. These were words from Cisco when they reached out to me. I tried using it. One, it's complicated for complicated's sake. It has licensing fees, but only after you add more than like 8 devices or something like that. They had these weird rules about when the licensing fees would kick in, over complex to set up, very unclear from Cisco, which models of their switches and access points actually supported their software to manage it. It wasn't like a concise list of these line or that line. So between all of that, you're scratching your head and going, well, this costs almost as much as UniFi. That was the one good thing, but it's not really running iOS, and the other software is terrible. And the quirkiness of it, because of the watch my end of life Cisco problems. And you're just like, how did Cisco come up with this terribly convoluted system that also does have licensing fees attached to it? That's hard to set up and really confusing. There's not a lot of other people that are as good as UniFi at putting together a really cohesive product. But someone brought up, and I will bring these people up, and I might do a video on this as a topic, because thoughts on TP-Link. TP-Link is knockoff UniFi. They copied an older version of the UniFi interface, and they're a little bit cheaper. They're way more buggy. That's the problem with them. We don't even do consulting on any more of the TP-Link stuff, because the problems were just a headache, and they just didn't work anymore. I got to confirm this, but one of my security friends pointed something out about TP-Link as well, that they are bad about actually fixing things that are disclosed to them. So not only are they buggy, they're terrible about actually fixing it. And the easy stuff to point out that I was aware of is like the Omada stuff. Omada was like 2 months behind on fixing Log4j. So there's an obvious one. But other times people have told me, and I've had a couple security people tell me this, and I want to validate this before I post this in a video, but I will dig up into this. I was told that they don't even bother with some of the hacking competition stuff with them anymore because they aren't fixing the bugs people keep finding. And I was like, that's interesting. Like the Pwn to Own competition, if I'm not mistaken, TP-Link is now out of the Pwn to Own. That's a rumor I heard because they wouldn't fix the issues anymore. This is kind of what led to what's possibly going to be a ban on TP-Link stuff here in the United States. Now, we need to have, because people ask what I think of the ban, we need a way more in-depth conversation about the garbage coming out of the domestic companies as well. So it's not the ban, it's the bigger picture we're not taking care of. The fact that at any given moment, Fortinet is probably part of some egregious breach from bad code that was written with flaws that we've had on the OWASP top 10 list for don't do this for like 10 years. And Avanti is just the same way, the Avanti VPN services. So we have plenty of domestic problems. I mean, we're narrowing the problems if we do ban TP-Link, but you're not solving the problem. Yeah, Omada was supposed to be their competitor, but I don't know who would go out and buy TP-Link right now. It just isn't that much less expensive for a lesser experience. I might poke at OpenWRT. I have not looked at it in years, and I'm impressed that the project seems to have pretty good active development, but it's been so long since I looked at it. I just don't know. This is what I need to do, and I need to find some friends, Homelab at lawrencesystems.com, that have spent more time poking at it and maybe can advise me on it. If I can find some good YouTubers to partner with to do a video, that would be great. Why does everyone use UniFi and Reolink? I think you mean TP-Link. Reolink makes cameras. I don't think Reolink makes network. Maybe I'm wrong and I just not seen it. Oh yeah. MikroTik, Fortinet, the list goes on. All these companies are GPL violations. If I were to say don't use anyone with a GPL violation, you'd just unplug your computer and go home. Like I wish they were not, is what I tell people, but I sometimes have to deal with the way the world is. Oh yeah, UniFi is absolutely dominating the market. It's crazy because right here, Alta Labs. So glad someone brought it up. I've had to have some silly conversations with the people at Alta Labs. They just make it harder than it needs to be. Like, if I'm not mistaken, let's go look this up now while we're sitting here. So let me Alta Labs self-hosted controller. Cool. Controller versions. Tell me this makes any sense to any of you. I can't make sense of this. UniFi gives away the controller for free. Alta Labs wants $49 for a controller to manage their hardware. Alta Labs controller is very much like the Ubiquiti controller. It manages the Alta Labs. I think that manages the firewall too, but I know it manages the switches and access points. The only thing I've tested from Alta Labs is switches and access points. By the way, they work well. I haven't had any problems with them. But the self-hosted controller is $49. Why is it $49? I don't understand. What value does it provide? What can you do with the Alta Labs controller besides control Alta Labs equipment? UniFi gives theirs away for free. Why doesn't Alta Labs? I don't get it. Yeah, this joke right here. Mom, can we get UniFi at home? No, we have UniFi at home. Omada. I like that meme. Yeah, the TP-Link stuff is, like I said, just very buggy for sure. I mean, any business to an extent is going to be for-profit focused. I mean, UniFi is not open source. Ultra Labs, not open source. That's the established. And I don't understand though, like, why are you charging for your software that only runs your stuff? I don't understand. Oh, Ingenious, that they're their own disaster. Anything I've worked with an Ingenious, fun story. As a creator, Ingenious is like, Tom, can you review things? I did. And I told them before I published a video on one of their switches, I got the switch from them. I don't know. I had it for a month before I did a video on it, did the video, told them how bad their documentation was, told them their VLAN documentation was wrong, told them how it should be corrected. I rewrote it for them and sent it to them. They thanked me. They said they would try to do it. I said, what do you mean try? I've told you what needs to be in your own documentation and you're not doing it. So I said, I'm going to publish a video and remind people that the documentation is actually wrong. So I made the video, and after I made the video, they still didn't fix the documentation. People thanked me for the video because it helped them figure out the how the VLANs worked. But then then someone else commented like 6 months later, they discontinued the model. I only had it for 7 months and now it's discontinued with no firmware updates. Fun thing, I haven't reviewed. TP-Link sent me other switches. I said, when are these coming out? They said soon. They've now discontinued those ones, so I never reviewed them. I've got these TP-Link switches that are now discontinued, they're sitting in my lab. I don't know what to do with some of those. Maybe that's what I should give away, is some of those sometime. I'm going to make first dibs for some of the employees in case they want them, but I got some of these random unsupported TP-Link switches going, what am I supposed to do with these things? They discontinued them. I never did the video because, not to mention, when they told me the MSRP was like $800 on these switches, I'm like, are you crazy? This is a $200 switch. What makes it worth $800? They're like, it's got some layer 3 features or something. And I'm like, this is a basic 10 gig switch with some SFP ports. I don't know. So I'm not impressed in any way with Ingenious. Hi, Tom. Pass through Ethernet couplers for patch panels nowadays, or stick with old-fashioned terminators, require punch down? I do like the punch down, but I'm going to be talking about this soon because I have pictures of my Homelab rack, and I want to mention that exact thing where, let me pull up the proper photos. Because I use a combination of both. So some of these are punched down on the other side. Some are not. Some are just loomed through, and that's why I have these open spots on there. I'm going to do a video really soon, maybe this weekend, talking about the method to my madness for how I wire things. And it's to make it not inflexible, essentially. What I mean by that is I change things a lot, and I want to be able to continue changing things. I can't just randomly change things if everything's locked down. Now, when we build it out for clients, oh yeah, we're locking it down, we're putting it all together tight, we're punching everything down. But for Homelab, you have a different scenario. When you're doing things in a Homelab, find one of the pictures of ones we did. When you're looking at the business stuff we're doing, because it's very static. Like we build it, no one's in there popping these things in and out. Where did that photo go? So here's the fun part. I go so many places. Oh, here they are. See, when I'm doing this, these are all punch downs and not pass-throughs. This is at a client. This is color-coded, labeled. All the ports are labeled. Everything's exactly as it should be. That's fine for those. I've done a video on this. This is the chemical factory video I did. And the business use case makes sense. But for Homelab, you got to have something where I try and experiment all the time. So there's maybe sections of your network that are static and you want to use the punch downs. But anywhere you're going to be swapping things around a lot, I like the inserts quite a bit. Yeah, no, this is a valid answer. Reflash your TP-Link with OpenWRT. Yes. That's not a fair comparison or even an equivalency at all comparing AMD and Intel versus TP-Link. AMD's been making processors for a long time, and there's been a lot of back and forth. Anyone who remembers the K6, man, I love the back when I'll get the age groups here for who remembers these. I'll know how old my audience is, but man, this is when AMD was starting to get ahead of Intel. And man, all of us, especially in the gaming scene, we were like jumping on these K6s. You could overclock them and everything else. TP-Link, the difference is security, bugginess and security. AMD may have been behind a lot of times in Intel on a lot of processor design, but being behind didn't make them insecure, didn't make them a absolutely poor choice. Matter of fact, they weren't as fast as Intel, but they often saved you money. But there were other times when they were saving you money and faster than Intel. And these AMD K6 series were one of the first times AMD really jumped ahead in more recent years. I know this is outside your house, but I'd love to hear your thoughts on Google being forced to sell Chrome, an open source browser valued at $20 billion. I mean, there's no easy answers at all for the monopoly that is Google. If you just want to read a good book on the topic, I've got this book listed on my website, and they cover it. This book is prior to the current Google announcement, but read Cory Doctorow and Rebecca Giblin. Anyways, the book Choke Point Capitalism, and it covers and touches on a lot. There's a new book about enshittification, and it just talks about these mega companies, Google included, that have really abused every piece of, they've abused everything at their disposal to create some terrible features and screw over the markets. And there's no easy answer, because once they've gotten this big, there's no such thing as a painless severing of Google into multiple pieces. I don't know an easier answer than that, but there's a lot of thoughts that come out of that book to give you some insight into just how egregiously awful these companies are. A comprehensive guide to TrueNAS scale would be cool, explaining all the features possible, like Mark Fern did for pfSense. Would be great. Yeah, Mark's video he did on specifically, what was that? Mark Furman's video on, it was pfSense. He did a lot of good visuals for the traffic shaping. That was a good piece of his video that had a lot of good information in there. Yeah, TP-Link throws out a lot of hardware, abandons it, which is great, but which is not great, but they also do that. You know, if you look, I did a video ranting about Cisco doing the same thing. Cisco's got a problem for how I pointed out some specific SKUs in Cisco, because people were complaining about being burned by some of the Cisco line of equipment. And specifically the stuff that is their smaller, it's not their enterprise, really expensive stuff. It's that smaller market stuff. And it's really bad. Cisco's had a few models, and this is what I highlight in that video. I go through models that were still being sold, but then died in terms of end of support in a very short time period when you could still buy them. And I think that's pretty much a shame, because Cisco's selling it based on their name. Some people say, well, it's really just rebadged Linksys stuff, but it doesn't matter. It's sold as the small business line. The small business line is something popular for small businesses, and they're still like $600 and $700 switches. So they're not free. They're not like $99 buy them at Best Buy switches. These are slightly better, but the end of life on them versus the end of sale was a really short distance. And I went through Cisco's documents to prove it. I didn't speculate. I went through and pulled all that up. So Alta's trying to force you to cloud controller, and I don't know. Yeah, Alta Labs is free. Like I said, it is. It's a mess. I didn't understand. I don't know why Wendell likes the Genius. I'll just be honest. I got to have a talk. Maybe that's the debate me and Wendell should have. Me and Wendell are friends. And I was going to say, why do you like Ingenious? Because the Genius has had some terrible products. For a little while, the Ingenious controller, if you didn't know this, when they had their central control system, they used to ship it to you in VirtualBox. They gave you an OVA file for VirtualBox in order to run their controller. They had no installer. And it was just weird. I've never thought I've never thought they made wonderful pieces of equipment. Now, some of the Ingenious stuff in the past, like they have some winners, and Wendell did cover the fact that Ingenious has a couple models that are really good. Like they have a couple winners in their lineup, but I can't blanket say all of Ingenious is good. And like Wendell just did a video on the site-to-site wireless, and maybe they do have a good site-to-site wireless setup. Wendell assumes we all know what we're doing. I think Wendell does a good job in his forums of explaining the details of stuff, but that is, hey, as a creator, there is no easy way for someone like me, Wendell, and many others who have spent 20 plus years working in tech and working at an enterprise level. Like it's hard to say, where do I start? Because I can't start every video with turn the computer on. I have to make some assumptions of where the knowledge is, that you know what an RJ45 connector is, that you know some other piece of information related to this. So where do you always start? Do I start every video as here's how you assemble your TrueNAS server before we get to permissions? Or can I start doing a permissions video? It's not easy. Yeah, I mean, I think I've talked to the people at Ultra Labs. I think they're nice. And I think their switches work well. I have had no problems with them. They've done firmware updates. The control is nice on them. I've got no complaints. I mean, the interface is nice. One of them's unplugged right now. I know. I realize it knows what's plugged in. Oh, it realizes I have a Raspberry Pi plugged in over here. But yeah, I don't know. It feels really basic. But how much more do I need? I guess. The port stuff is a little strange on it. Devices, network. But I can do VLAN management. I have VLANs in here. You can do custom VLANs, the easy to define. Functionality of this works great. Like I have no real issues with the functionality. But there's not a lot of functionality here. It's pretty basic. What data storage has been used for storage for Kubernetes? I don't do Kubernetes, so I can't answer that. I know a lot of people like Kubernetes. I think it's overly complicated for a home lab. If you plan to get a job doing Kubernetes, great. For a home lab, it feels like overkill. I'm fine with just Docker. Keystones that you choose, punch down coupler, or even other port types? Yes. I have useful thoughts on a topic. How the network ecosystem has evolved into. I might try running OpenWRT a bit for at home just because comments keep bringing up. I love pfSense, but it's about time to see why the grass seems greener. Yeah, I like that they're releasing their own hardware. That is cool. They've created the entire OpenWRT board. I think that's a great thing. Ruckus is a different confusing mess. I just avoid them. And anyone I've talked to that's used Ruckus seems to hate them. Hey, Tom, how do you patch your BIOS or firmware updates on devices that you flash XGB or TrueNAS on? As needed. I don't like if something needs a firmware update, I will update the firmware on it. I mean, sometimes you have to take them down to do it. Is that the question? If you're using a nice IPMI BIOS, you can usually upload the firmware that way. Like if you have like the super micro boards have that ability to update the firmware through that. I have some ASRock ones. That's how we update the firmware. You can update the firmware through the IPMI interface. I can't say a lot about this topic, but the future looks good. Cisco licenses a product that isn't unique anymore. People don't want to pay to use something that has existed in open source for a long time. Yeah. Let's see. I think UniFi got it right. Free download controller software plus a paid hardware key that's almost plug and play. Yeah. That's just, they made it easy to use. Can you do admin user setup for a Windows share? Yeah, I've got a sharing video on that. If you look up TrueNAS shares or permissions, I have a video where I cover that. I do like diagrams as well. Tips on how to are all right here. This is like the best guides on how to use Synologies with Docker. I like this guy's stuff. Really good. Yeah, this is the other thing though. I've tried to figure out the licensing with Ruckus, and pretty much you got to call a Ruckus sales rep who's had been trained on how their licensing works, because it's not, at least my Google Foo isn't good enough to figure out the licensing on Ruckus. Maybe I need an AI system to properly do that. I don't know. Ruckus costs and licenses. A lot of use Ruckus on eBay very cheap, but probably because the original owner has stopped paying Ruckus. That's where your problem is. And actually, this kind of makes me sad for a lot of Homelab people. All the stuff that needs licenses and it goes on secondary markets like eBay, you're like, cool, I'll have access to it. No, you won't. they're going to turn into a pumpkin because the license has expired. It's not a pumpkin at midnight. It's a pumpkin when the license expires. Best way to make a network topology map. I really love draw.io. It has been my go-to for a long time. And I've talked about it quite a few times. Because all my videos that I do, people always ask, hey, Tom, can I have a copy of the file for this? And I'm like, absolutely. Go to my GitHub where you'll find that I upload all of these. So whenever I'm making these different diagrams for things, you'll find that they're also, you can have a copy of them for free, because it is harder starting with a blank template. The nice thing is if you start with one of my networks and maybe your network looks at least similar, or you can just copy and paste elements, you can have some concepts. But yeah, definitely the WireGuard is, or WireGuard, Draw.io. I was reading things on the screen now. Draw.io is one of my favorites. It's open source, cross-platform, and free. Yeah, maybe. I don't know. I've actually followed the guides from Marius Hosting and never had a problem getting anything Docker set up. So I don't know what step you missed, but his guides have always been really solid for me. Yes, happy Boxing Day. I got my Palo Alto 850 for $250. SSL inspection is included with no license. Well, that's nice. Yeah, I want to play with one of my friends has just acquired some of that type of hardware, and I want to see what is needed to make it work. And the licensing comes up. I think we want to build it as a TrueNAS server, but I don't know what's involved. I know people do conversions on some of the NetApp ones, but I don't know which ones are or are not supported. I have a UniFi Express. The UI interface is really slow loading sometimes when I make it changes, such as Wi-Fi network. Sometimes it will crash. Is this normal? No, I can't say that that is normal in any way. I don't know why it would. I think I missed something basic up to be honest to your knowledge. Can I just restore Synology conf and not lose data? I mean, if you're having a permissions problem, think about where the Docker images are pointed. So if you create a share on your Synology or a folder, whatever they call it, I think it's called a folder. When you create the folder on the Synology, it's going to want to know what permissions. So I would just blow away that folder. I don't think you need to like redo your entire Synology, but if you go with that, let me share mine. So let me, where's the container manager? Can we install the container one? Let's install the standard one. But it'll want to know where you want to put this data, and that might be where you messed up. So if you're having a permissions problem, if you have to blow away where you told it to put the container data, just do that. I don't think you need to reset your whole Synology to make that work. You have a UX crash with 50 endpoints. I'm assuming it's this model. They have somewhere, though. And it says it can handle 60 devices, according to their site. I've got a UniFi Express at let me pull this up here in a second. It's got a. It does pull up a little bit slow. The page is loaded, so I can show you now. But this is a UniFi Express that my daughter has, and she only has a handful of devices, but she's obviously pulling plenty of data on it with no problem. I've never had a problem. I don't have an Express with the closer to the max number of devices, but it seems to work fine. I haven't had any issues with it at all. It is definitely slower than the other models. I'll give it that. I've sold entire projects off network diagrams, generally because they want an actual diagram of their network. And I think mine is awesome. I forget where I don't know. I don't use this much. I've set up for testing, but I've never done any videos on it. File path. Yeah, so by default, it looks like it wants to go there, which I'll assume. Yep, it creates that automatically, which I'll assume also it probably sets the security automatically. But it's been a minute since I have a couple things running. I didn't document it very well. I just went through and next and yes my way to success, and it seemed to work. I still got a lot of packages that are full of errors. I might still just reset the system. There's nothing on it. Do I want to click 17 times or do I reset the system for this? There's still a lot of errors in here. I don't really understand this because I've had someone tell me that. And it's like, the reason I say I don't understand, and let me give an example here. Let's go to my UniFi system. I'm live doing a live stream. What change should we make that allegedly will reset my network? That's the part that I have a harder time understanding. People say, oh, UniFi's got to fix this bug that resets the network. So I am plugged in. Where is my computer actually? Let's find it. Actually, nope, mine's .9. So there's my computer plugged into the 16 gigs. It's connected at 10 gig. So it's plugged into this. If you look at a port manager, where's Tom's system? Tom's computer, port 16, right there. So I'm not going to change port 16. That would obviously cause a problem. But let's change port 12. We're just going to change it to Lab 101. Apply change. There we go. Yes. Whoops. Did I actually change mine? Crap. Let's see if mine goes down or not. Okay, hopefully I got it before I sent that change because I accidentally had both ports selected. So this one's selected. Unselect that. This one's set at Lab 101. Yes, so the changes should be being pushed through. But I don't see it going down. I don't know when the next CE version is coming out. Nope, I don't get tech presents. I buy anything I want. Well, yeah, if you're going to redo your network to a different mask, that's a whole different problem. That's a different change. Oh, yeah, wireless, if you're changing the SSID, it will cause that. But that's something I do. That is the rarest thing I do. Once I set an SSID, I don't change it very often. So I'm not as worried about, like, it does reinitialize when you add an SSID, it reinitializes the access points. I mean, it's something that affects us like zero. We're not changing it for clients that often. That one, Veronica gets it. When tech is your business, you get tax-deductible presents all year round. Absolutely, I do. If I want any piece of tech, I usually just go out and buy it on an as-needed basis. I have a UniFi UDR and I'm considering switching for a different firewall so I can have WAN failover. Do you know if I can use the UDR for UniFi config and AP for UniFi controller and AP? I don't understand the question exactly. So you want WAN failover. Do you know if I can use the UDR for the UniFi controller and AP, but not routing and firewall? Yeah, you can. I've got a video on how to do it. You can figure out a way to do it. It's clunky, and I don't think I'd really recommend it, but it can work. You can take the Dream Machine and put it into you take the LAN, set it to another IP address, turn off DHCP, and I've got a video like how to work pfSense with UniFi. So there's a way that it can be done. It's just kind of ugly. Getting conflicting reports. Is it a bad idea to install Docker from SSH on Synology when it has a container manager already installed and designed to work with it? Yeah, I would definitely say use the container manager. Once you go off book with Synology and you're SSH'd in and messing around with things, if you update, I don't know if those updates will break your custom installation or not. Probably depends on what it is and what the update is. Are there cheaper solutions to PCI expansion like those one-stop systems to get a bunch more PCI slots? I don't know. I've never really done that. I usually, if I need more PCIe slots, I'll just buy a board that has more of them on there. What I am going to do, though, is I'm out of water and I'm thirsty, so I need to go get more water. So I'm going to do that, and I'm going to throw up my little be right back as soon as I find it. It's in a media assets somewhere. Where is that at? It's kind of funny, all the different things in here. Where is that video clip? It's not under this. Is it under here? There it is. All right, so I'm going to throw up the be right back, and then I will be right back. Yeah, bass. Drop the bass. Be right back. And I'm back and all that fun stuff. Oh, little baklava. Homemade baklava. Hello, baklava. Let's see here. Caution, headphones easier. Streaming board button. Is it that loud? I don't know. I balanced it against my other YouTube content. It's not actually not actually heard this at normal playback speed. I like the bass in it, but should I drop the bass? Should it be a little lower? I mean, I haven't redone that in a while. Maybe I need to redo it. Okay. So you're wearing headphones and it sounded fine. And the fact that it says you're a music man in your description here makes me think you are into music more so than I. It's an assumption. So keep the bass. Fair enough. I can keep the bass. Get back to the comment. Trying to find all the buttons in here. I do eventually. I might switch to doing things with OBS. It's been on my to-do list. I use a tool right now called StreamYard. One of the biggest reasons I use StreamYard is because it lets me do things like this so easily. How do you think companies would use their newer kernels instead of backporting their vendor kernel? I do not have an answer for that. I randomly grabbed a question that I don't think I have an answer for. How do you think companies would use newer kernels? Or are you asking why they don't use them? Mostly it's just because of breakage that they worry about is why they don't, if that's the question. Big screen TV, not too bad. Fair enough. Listed in my car with lots of subs, lots of bass. Oh, that was my younger years for sure. You love playing and listening to music. Fair enough. I am completely not musical. Actually, why not while I'm here doing stupid? I will share this with people. This is stupid. I'm going to preface it with this is stupid. But that's where things are fun. When things are stupid, right? I was playing with the Sunu. I think it's called, I might be pronouncing it wrong. So I wanted to see how quick Sunu could create a parody song called Threat Actors Paradise based on Gangster's Paradise. And it was about hacking corporate America, threat actors hacking corporate America. And I just thought, like, this is stupid, but it's funny. Also, Weird Al's got nothing to worry about. It makes parody songs mediocre. Like, Weird Al is still the king of parody as far as I'm concerned. And this is amusing and it worked. So I shared it with all of you so you can listen to something dumb I did. It gave me some chuckles. I was doing this with some friends because someone said it's a threat actor's paradise. And then we started bouncing ideas amongst my security friends into lyrics, which turned into, what's that tool that makes music parodies? And so someone like Sunu, and I'm like, cool. So I made it, and it's silliness, but amusing. I like that you can just create songs on the fly, and some people have figured out ways to tune it and make it better. It's still not the same as original content. I have commented and ranted about AI being the fast food of creativity. AI is just not creative. It just regurgitated information of what others have already done. So it's not true creativity, but as far as creating parody song lyrics, it does that. It's a fancy word guessing machine with AI. So it makes, there's enough musical input that has gone into tools like Sunu, I think that's how you pronounce it, Sunu, and it can generalize, go, hey, let's create some generic sounding music. And maybe that's what you need. And for a lot of YouTubers that just want some background stuff, probably that'll work. I avoid putting music. I got burned early on, so I've avoided putting music that I did not personally create inside of there. Matter of fact, one of the things that really irked me, there was artists a long time ago, and I included a couple of their songs in my videos back from like 2017 or 2016. And in 2022, I got a copyright strike because even though that artist had licensed them and I had the license, they sold their license to someone else who did a copyright strike on me and everyone else that ever used their music. And I was like, boy, this is annoying. And I just decided not to use music anymore because that person somehow, through the series of stupidity that goes on with copyright striking. So I had videos get copyright music strikes on there, and I chose not to dispute them because it wasn't worth my time, and they're not popular videos anyways. It was just annoying. So I've just avoided using music because it just isn't worth the stupid headaches. Nope. Me and Techno Tim have both experienced a glitch, and we don't know why, because it's not in our original content. It's only when we upload it to YouTube. And if I find the glitch in YouTube, the fix is not even to re-render the video. I delete the video from YouTube and re-upload it, and the glitch will go away. So I don't know. We both know we end up having it, and we've even had videos that get it later, not when we first upload them. So we don't know how to solve the problem because it's never in the original. So me and Techno Tim have scratched our heads about it a few times, but it's weird because if I didn't have a group of YouTube friends, I wouldn't know about this problem. I don't watch every one of Tim's videos, and it doesn't happen on every one of my videos. So I don't really understand how to solve that one yet. When you said it sounded like Nunu from Teletubbies. Yeah, I should use AI music. Veronica explains, we really need public domain law for a lot of these electronic systems. They wouldn't go to waste. Yes. You know, this is another thing I kind of mentioned earlier, like the Cory Doctorow book. Cory Doctorow's got some really good writing around the problems with all the content systems. And it's a giant mess that I don't know the answer to. I know it's broken. It's very broken, and YouTube's not making it better. What is the best low power cost option for backup in NAS? Probably the small Synologies. I would probably put the small Synology on the list of like the really cheap ones to go with. Nunu is the name of a robot vacuum that has googly eyes. Well, now I'm curious. I didn't need to know that, but why not? Oh, fair enough. That's the name of the vacuum. Got it. So, it's N-O-O-N-O-O. So in Suno is S-U-N-O. Suno. Suno? I said Suno. It probably is Suno. Cost of the box is not the main issue. The monthly cost of running it is. Yeah. The Synologies, the smaller ones are pretty low power. Any alternative to UniFi for wireless outdoor cams? I've never looked at any outdoor wireless cams or just wireless cams in general. I'm not a huge fan of. They're more consumer products. When we do the commercial ones, we're always running wire and cable to them because that's how you power them. I know that being able to run cable to those locations can be challenging, but I know you're limiting your options greatly when you choose to only have a wireless cam. There's just not as many options out there, and I've never really researched them. Have you considered paid content on your own site? Many of us has learned. Yeah, eventually I'm going to set up some, I don't know what, but some extra content where people can buy it or other ways to support the channel. That is on my to-do list of things to do. I know Network Chuck is popular in the tech space and he's got his Network Chuck Academy. And my goal is always to try to give as much as way I can for free, but there's a balance because I have to pay my bills. If it were up to me, like in a perfect world, I would just give it all away for free. But I don't live in a perfect world where I can just give it all for free. So I have sponsors and things like that. And that's been filling the gap. But yeah, if I set up some type of lab, now my forums are free. Maybe that's the mistake. I should have maybe charged people to be in my forums. I don't know. I've seen people do that, where you pay $10 a year, something really minimal I would do. But right now, that's actually one of the things. Forums cost me money. I need to figure out, how can I help monetize in a sane, rational, not disgusting way my forums to pay for all the hosting costs as the users go up. And by the way, my forums currently get over, I think it's about 85,000 unique visitors a week right now. And it's not real expensive, but as my popularity of my channel and forums go up, there is an expense of running the servers that run them. It's not huge, but got to figure out how that works. Yeah, the power draw on the UniFi NAS is really low. I don't think you can use the battery in a Tesla for that. I think Zyxel is garbage. They've had some seriously bad security flaws. They've had numerous backdoors. I've never understood why people like them. Any of the ones I've used, I always thought this is just a terrible product and it has no redeeming qualities and has bad security. Yeah. Paid content, how to do VLANs. Transitioning volunteer to contract? I don't know. I mean, tell people you gotta charge them. I don't. I've thought about doing the classes. Yeah. I try to avoid all the stupid NordVPN. Man. Any suggested recommendations for a non-Cisco savvy home lab or adopting Cisco enterprise grade, switching for their network lab, adopted the Cisco and 24 port? I mean, if you're trying to learn Cisco, then there's channels out there that do a lot of Cisco training. I'm not among them. I don't do Cisco training. I have 0 Cisco certifications. Income is a recommended affiliate link section video of how to set up network from scratch with recommended parts. Yeah, Amazon really, like back in the early days of my YouTube channel, there was 2 things. Amazon paid way better and YouTube paid way better. I have more views now, but I have less income coming from YouTube. Even though there's more videos, more views, there's less income because they cut the ad rates. The ad buy rates just aren't as much as they used to be. Second is the Amazon. Amazon, I think, is 1/4 the commission they used to be. Amazon used to have a good affiliate program. Amazon reduced the affiliate program, and they've reduced it so much that it literally, it's not that it's not worth it. It just isn't like it used to be. I make about 1/7, I think, or 1/6 the amount of money I was making on Amazon on the heyday. How to set up any rules. Oh yeah, and I didn't watch the video. I always thought it was weird that honey was so recommended by everybody, and then I seen that there's a video that came out about it being a scam. Yeah, they reach out too. I've never played Raid Shadow Legends, but definitely that's one of the popular ones that many YouTubers have definitely done. Do you think Wi-Fi 8 or future Wi-Fi 9 APs will be 10 gig uplink, making 10 gig finally mainstream for wired connections? I don't know. Maybe. I mean, right now, UniFi's got 10 gig on their, I believe UniFi's got 10 gig on their new Wi-Fi 7 models. There's a diminishing return. So 10 gig has been around since 2006. So I would probably say it's pretty mainstream, but there's just diminishing returns of how fast do you need data to move. Most the average users, home users, or even office users just don't need more than 1 gig. The only time you have people who want faster is Homelab people that want to run speed tests to prove they can get the most maximum speed between where they are and where they're testing from. Second is video editors. And the video editing market is pretty big, even has a lot of YouTubers included in that video editing market. But outside of that, the average person just doesn't have, there's not anything about their day that would be better, like their daily computer usage, that would be better if they had 10 gig. We set up offices, I mentioned like that factory we did, the chemical factory, several hundred users there. They're not even saturating 1 gigs. There's not anything about their day that would be better if they had 10 gig. And more things going on the web, that's a different bottleneck. Yeah, once people realize how many 4K streams you can do on a 1 gig connection, I'm talking like multiple 4K, and 1 gig is fine. And 8K content's a thing, but it's not that popular. But you can still do several 8K content streams on a 1 gig line. This is one of the reasons that 10 gig has been around for pushing, wow, that's like 19 years. And people say it's not mainstream, but it's because it's a demand problem. There's not enough demand to push it to mainstream. And I wouldn't say it's not mainstream. It's relatively inexpensive to get 10 gig. It's not like you're breaking the bank here to get 10 gig. What enterprises switches would you recommend for production storage switching? We just did some for a client that are Arista. Those seem to work well. Cisco, we did some for Cisco. We did some that were Arista. So both of those are fine. Where's the stack of switches we had? We've also, and they're definitely buggy. We've used some fs.com ones as well. So we've definitely used the gamut of inexpensive switches, Arista switches. These are the fs.com ones. So it's a mix. I think these are on the bottom. Are these on the bottom fs.com as well? Yep. Yeah, these are all fs.com. We had some Arista ones too. Where do those go? Here's the Arista ones. These are 100 gig Arista switches for storage. But I honestly don't think the UniFi ones are bad either. So UniFi, I'm using UniFi for all my storage, and I think it works fine. But UniFi only very recently came out with their switches. They're I think they're down here at the bottom. So these are the new, you can remove these, actually this is the back of the new UniFi enterprise switches. They got removable fans, dual power supplies, support MC lag. The new UniFi switches are definitely among the ones that I would say, yeah, that's going to be enterprise grade. But these are pretty new, so not everybody has them. They look cool, though. We run a data center with 100 customers. Everyone gets dual 10 gig to the rack. We're lucky if the whole data center ever hits more than 4 or 5 gig. It really depends on what you're using it for. Yes. Do you have any customers on Starlink? How's their experience? Think about switching to Starlink. Not bad, but it's always been backup. It's never been their primary interconnection. Most of the clients that we have that have Starlink, I think all of them actually, that if they have Starlink, it's not their primary, it's their backup. There is kind of an exception because we have like, I would say there's a farming company, and I believe, I don't know this for sure. I have to look at the layout. I think they actually have Starlink at one of their remote offices because they need data from there. It was just easier to put Starlink there, and it's not part of critical. Always appreciate the live streams. Awesome. Are the UniFi switches as SFP plus? Oh yeah. They have the UniFi switches come in all the flavors: SFP plus, SFP 28, and the QSFP 28. So all the way up to 100 gig. I've never used OpenStack. It seems like an overcomplicated solution for the problems I'm trying to solve, but I don't know anything bad about it other than it seems to have an increased complexity level compared to something like the Proxmox or XCP-NG. Your videos on Homelab or my design documentation for my nonprofit network. That's awesome. Good to hear. Starlink is by far the fastest interconnection I can get, but the irregular latency speed for that cost worries you. Yeah, I mean, you're going to outer space and back. That's going to be a challenge. And once you're heading to outer space with the signal, the geographical distance you've created between there is going to create some issues. I know a company deployed wireless backup like Starlink. Absolutely nobody complains when they fail over because it was faster. They only get upset when they get the bill. Yeah. I think Starlink is cheaper though than the 5G bill people used to get. So I'm glad there's a lot of, we'll just call it overcharging that the networks will do. Here in the US, internet is rather expensive compared to my understanding of a lot of European areas, but it kind of depends. There's some areas that may have more. The fact that these companies somewhat have monopolies and lock-ins, they charge what they refer to here as predatory pricing. What that means is Comcast is well known for doing this. And my friends that worked at Comcast, I've learned so much from them. None of them will ever go public because they don't want to be nuked from outer space with lawyers. But essentially, Comcast is brazen internally about how they handle things. And I've always found this kind of interesting. What I mean by how they handle things, Comcast will have a price differential in areas where they have lock-in. If they have a lock-in deal where if you happen to live in this town or city, you can only get Comcast, Comcast skyrockets the price. If you live in the adjacent city that has competition, they don't. So Comcast puts less resources, as in less technicians available. They put less effort into the network, and they charge more for the network because there's no competition in those networks. This is how they operate. There's a reason South Park had that infamous, making fun of Comcast episode, which really nailed it. Yeah, I had several admins and engineers tell me that if I went OpenStack route, I'd need to hire a team just to manage it. That is the same thing I've heard from several people, and updates are sometimes painful on it. It's the same thing like Kubernetes. Even people who run Kubernetes for a regular amount of time will tell you that there can be challenges when you upgrade to new versions of Kubernetes. And of course, you don't want to not upgrade because you don't want to have an insecure or unpatched system or incompatibility. And you don't want the delta to get bigger between your current version and the newest version, because those upgrade paths sometimes have to be incremental. Yeah, but when you operate at the size of Geico, that's different. And they chose OpenStack. They have a team of engineers. So it really comes down to your use case. So it's neat that Geico was public about that. I thought about doing a video because there's several companies that have moved away from it, but it comes down to what's their use case. Does OpenStack work better for them than doing a more traditional hypervisor? Possibly. AWS custom engineers. They're not using any off-the-shelf hard software. They very, very much customize it, but hyperscalers like AWS, well, of course they can afford to do that. I live in the UK, and people here a few streets away get fiber, but it hasn't reached here yet. Well, I hope it reaches you. I heard you heard you mention something about Wazoo. I've actually done a video talking about it. Can you remember what you didn't like about it and what you didn't like? I cover in my video the pros and cons of Wazoo in a more in-depth discussion. My problem, not really big problem, but kind of problem with Wazoo, I didn't feel like setting up agents, and it doesn't do full packet capture, but it's novel. It gives you some good information on the endpoints. So I don't really tell people not to use it. It's not scalable for the business use case I have. Like, we manage through the IT side of my company called CNWR. We manage several thousand computers, and these several thousand computers, managing them with Wazoo would not be practical. So for a home lab environment, I think Wazoo is great. For an enterprise environment, maybe not so. But if you are a single IT person managing an internal group of computers, maybe Wazoo is pretty cool for that. I've also had people tell me, and this is completely messages I got, I don't have firsthand experience. They told me that Wazoo sometimes has breaking changes on updates. I don't know. But if you buy a support package from them, they'll help you with the updates, I imagine. So there's, like any system, there's updates that sometimes break, and sometimes you have to buy support to figure out why those updates broke. Well, and this is one of the reasons we like XCP-NG so much. So if we look at the Vates support, this is why people ask me, like, why aren't you using more Proxmox? I'm like, this is the 24/7 support, 1 hour critical issue support time versus 24-hour. I mean, we do sell these packages for people, and this is what gets people to sign off on using Enterprise XCP-NG. You have problems every time you upgrade Kubernetes. Yes. Is Bluetooth technology going to die in the next coming years? I doubt it. I mean, I can't see all of my headphones quitting working over the next couple of years. I got these little J-Bro headphones. I've got a few other ones. Like, I like my little Bluetooth devices. I don't see why it would die. Not really. There's not any paywall for critical features. You can, if you compile it yourself, you get all the features. And someone says that's paywalling, that you have to self-compile. I don't think self-compiling is a paywall. That's clearly a debate. Like, here's all the stuff. Here's a script to build it. It's yours to support. It's free. And people are like, that's a paywall. I want a complete delivered product with all features for free, with auto updates and magic. And they don't do that. If you want like auto updates and auto service delivery, they pay for it. If not, you can script it. Scripting something doesn't, to me, constitute a paywall. With overlay networks getting more popular, do you think a FOSS network with a firewall could rival Zscaler? Ooh, no. You're matter of fact, right now, earlier in the video here, like an hour ago, we've been going for 2.5 hours. Much earlier, I was talking about the problem right now with open source and the lack of availability, and it's shrinking. I wouldn't see any type of traffic inspection coming from an open source firewall. Just don't see it. I don't see enough development in there. I don't see it happening in OpenWRT. I don't even know if that's a feature you can add on to it. So unfortunately, I think things are going back towards black box, and it feels sad. There used to be so many open source firewalls, and now the market is narrowing, and it comes down to development costs. Hiring good developers is really expensive, and maintaining those developers' pay while trying to give something away is really not an easy business model. Matter of fact, I'm watching Netgate, who people are mad because they charge like $120 a year for their home license, and people clamoring how expensive that is. And I'm like, for the firewall, I don't know. What do you think development costs are? And it is what it is. Like, I don't know. I don't know their install base, if that's actually enough money. I do know they have, I think, 6 kernel developers. That's just not like they have a big team at Netgate just to put together all the stuff. They contribute. I think I've covered this before, but there's a pretty large percentage Netgate contributes back to BSD. So they're contributing upstream to get the downstream benefits. And there's several $100,000 in payroll there. I mean, probably well over $1 million in payroll just in contributions back. How do you sell a firewall for $10 a month and then try to get all that back? It's not easy. It's not an easy math. So that's where FOSS seems to be unfortunately kind of floundering right now. The biggest downside of Wazoo is that open search, which makes it challenging to manage. I'm hoping someone puts the intel from Wazoo on top of a better DB. Proxmox is one of the only hypervisors not supported by CloudStack. Yeah, Proxmox has their new data center manager, and I think it's pretty cool because what people don't realize is people are saying, well, this makes Proxmox better than XO. And I'm like, no, the data center manager feature that Proxmox came out with actually makes it closer to XO. It gives it features that Proxmox was missing. And that is the ability to manage a series of Proxmox clusters in one dashboard. That's something you've always had with XO. That's what XO was designed to do, not just manage hosts or manage resource pools. Resource pools are similar to what Proxmox calls a cluster when you group hosts together, but it also has been able to manage multiple resource pools, multiple groupings of hosts. And I think that's pretty cool that Proxmox is developing that feature. Morpheus hypervisor. There's a bunch of them out there. I don't know if it's good or not. I have no idea. If they're closed source, I'm even less interested in them. Yeah, this is the new, and I got a picture of it here. This is the new data center manager from Proxmox. This is off their site. I don't have it loaded. But you'd be able to have all your remote data centers here. I think it's cool. It's in alpha right now, so it's really early. But clever nonetheless. It's very recent. It was released within the last couple weeks. I don't know. I might play more with Proxmox. I'm building a new lab, and I will probably set up more Proxmox systems to play with them, because why not? People think because I use XCPNG, don't like Proxmox, but it's not that I don't like it. It doesn't seem to have the same enterprise level support that people ask for. Like someone said earlier, I can't get the business to sign off on it without a SLA agreement. Proxmox SLA agreement's not the same as XCP&G's SLA agreement. Not to mention, I had posted my silliness and jokes about this. Let me find one of them. Because I'm always posting memes. I should have posted it to my YouTube as well. Because someone asked me about the differences, and maybe I need to do a comparison. Proxmox data center and Proxmox backup. So you have Proxmox, then you have Proxmox backup, then you have Proxmox data center. All of that's already integrated into XO. That's all of it. XO has all those features with one service. So Proxmox is now gathering up these extra features to come up with parity for features that already exist in XCP&G and XO. Once I start using Image, I'll make some videos on it. Yes. Yeah, Zen's not ideal for nested virtualization. So here's the thing. Where is their SLA agreements? Their SLAs are very they're not exactly the same. They offer during their business hours a certain level of support. Where is it? It's funny that searching it used to land on the page. There it is, maybe. Two hours within a business day. That's a little different than 2 hours because you're on their time schedule with their premium. I don't think their pricing is bad. I think they have a very reasonable price for what they charge. I think it's weird they charge per CPU socket, but whatever. But yeah, 2 hours within their business day. So it's not the same as XCP&G offers. Yeah, Proxmox has definitely become very popular in a Homelab. Yes, Google XCP&G. You'll find a bunch of my videos explaining the hypervisor. Yeah, 2 hours in their business hours, which is important. I don't know. I know they're in Austria. I don't know the time zone of Austria. Do you manage XCP clients, or do you point them in the direction of VATES and various support offerings? We resell the VATES SLA, so it varies. It kind of depends on what they need, and sometimes we're managing it, sometimes they're managing it. It's not like one answer for all questions. I'm looking at getting a NAS. Would you recommend getting something like Synology in it or just building your own TrueNAS? I recently did a video comparing TrueNAS and Synology about a week ago. That video, it's a forum post if you just want to read all the feature comparisons. It kind of depends on your use case. I'm a big DIY person, but if you're going, but I really want these automated backups, Synology's got a lot of really nice features like the built-in automated backups. Hard to beat them. And yeah, it's hard not recommending Synology because it works so well, but I have both. That's my answer. I use the Synology features that I love, and I have a TrueNAS that has the features I love. So I like both platforms. But if you only can afford one, read through my list and figure out which one works the best for you. Yeah, I seen that, and that is in my queue. I was I was waiting for that episode to drop. I remember when they interviewed him, and I was looking forward for that episode. So I will definitely be listening to that, probably tonight. It seems Proxmox and XGP are trying to reach parity with each other. Yeah, they're both, which is great. They're both open source, and I have a lot of love for both projects. I like both. I prefer XCP-ng for ease of management. One of the things I've talked about many times with XCP-ng is, we pull it up here, a really nice feature in XCP-ng that's currently not as easy to implement in Proxmox is defining networks. And if I'm granted, someone's going to point out, Tom, you can do Ansible. But if I wanted to add a network, create network. If I had 20 hosts, all 20 hosts would instantly have that network that quick. That when you define everything at the pool level, because Zen favors resource pools, it makes defining networking and changing networking a lot easier. If I needed to change this network to 333, there we go. We're going to change the VLAN on this network, and we just changed it on every host in a pool. That's the kind of features I really like. They're getting there with their SDN on Proxmox, but they're not there. And you can do it with SDN. You can do it with Terraform or defining roles in Ansible. In XCP-ng, you can do it with Terraform. You can do defining roles in Ansible and things like that. Or I can just click on a UI and do it. And plus, I don't want this network, so we're going to delete it. There, I just deleted that network across all of my hosts, and they're now synchronized instantly. Yeah, I've got a lot of videos on XCP-ng for things, for sure. Yeah, the container management's novel in Proxmox. If you're using a lot of LXC containers, that's a feature XCP-ng is not planning on. Proxmox data center-ish software costs more than Proxmox. So I don't know how they're charging for the data center. I don't know what the pricing will be. Well, SDN, but you first have to build out the SDN to do that. That's where it gets a little bit more confusing. And by the way, this is a topic that's I need to load more Proxmox servers up and play with them. Because one of the problems I've had is people tell me the SDN breaks things when they do apt-get update. It broke some stuff. So I had a few complaints about that, and some support calls come in for it because people are looking for people to support. They assume I'll support Proxmox, and to an extent we will, but there's like broken networking problems, and I'm a little like, I don't know what causes them all the time because I didn't set their systems up. So I need to build more Proxmox systems. My business partner, Jason, told me he's got some notes about stuff that he broke in Proxmox just by running updates. And I want to find out better how that works. That's easy in Proxmox with the SDN. Yeah, but how easy is the SDN? How well does it work? These are the questions I'm not sure. Like, does that work well with the SDN now? I know it just came out of beta, which is great. So it is production ready. It's more confusing, but once you know it's simple, you add a zone, then the VNets to that zone. Each VNet has a defined VLAN. So kind of the question, and this is the part I'm not as familiar with Proxmox with, and XCP-ng makes this stupidly easy. when you're an XCP-ng and you have a lot of hosts, I only have 2 hosts on this system. But if I want to get rid of a host and I detach this host, it'll reset and wipe this host. I can bring in any number of hosts and I don't have to do anything. I can load XCP-ng, attach a host, and that's it. All the config follows that will come from the pool and follow the host. I've not had anyone able to answer this clearly. Let's say I have 50 VLANs to find. I've done the SDN work. I want to adopt a brand new, freshly loaded Proxmox. Can that Proxmox, freshly loaded, join and automatically be part of the resource pool with all the features? And going back to one of the examples we have here, I have all these servers. I only had to set up one server to find the networking. And as I joined the, 16 more servers. So 15, so there's 16 servers here. I set up one and then 15 of them copied the settings. Can I do that with Proxmox? I don't know. That's the part I'm trying to, if someone knows, I don't know. I don't want to speak out of turn here and say it can't do it, but can it do it? I don't think Active Protect is replacing Active Backup. Not that I know of. In Proxmox, if you add a host, you have to go to the SDN page and press apply. I don't know if it's automatic. I don't think so. Need to test it. This has been one of my other challenges with Proxmox and I don't know where to find these people, but I know where they can contact me. Homelab at lawrencesystems.com. I have not met anyone outside of doing Homelab work. I've met people using Proxmox in business. I've done numerous projects with up to 2,000 virtual machines in XCP-ng. I have never been contacted by anyone, and I've said it in many live streams before. I said, show me a 2,000 VM Proxmox system. And no one's like, well, I'm running it in my lab, or I've got this business and I set up 3 of them and it works great. And I said, okay. And that's it. I've never seen anyone doing it at scale. Think of this from my perspective. For me being an integrator who gets hired to do these things is, by the way, when I say client project, someone paid me to do this. Someone paid me a lot of money to set all this up. They bought all the hardware. We built it all out. We put it together in the lab. These projects like this one here with everything that's going into it is a $400,000 project. I have to make good on my word that when someone gives me $400,000, my company, not me directly, when someone hires CNWR for a $400,000 project, they want to know, will this work once it's in my data center with these high demands, with this support? I do not trust Proxmox enough to say yes. You know what I mean? And by the way, there's some legal ramifications if I don't deliver things. So it's definitely a concern, if you will, that I have something that I know scales. So this is why Proxmox is a hard one to bet on. I have been betting on XCP-ng and been impressed with just how big of clients we've been able to keep happy with it. Does XO config backup? XO itself also feature Proxmox missing currently. You can't back up VMs. You can back up VMs, but not the Proxmox config itself. Yeah, absolutely. Inside of XCP-ng, if you're doing backups, you just go right here. Actually, do I already have a job doing it? But yes, you can just back up the pool and the config. You can back up both of them right here. Restoring XCP-ng from disaster recovery is dead easy. I don't have a job doing it on this one. This is one of my lab ones. Let's build a job right now on the fly. Let's show you how quickly we can build a backup for this. We're going to go ahead and do, whoops, wrong one. We want the XO config metadata. We'll give it a nice name. We'll send it here. Schedule. Keep 7, 7, 7. Run daily. It'll run each day at midnight. I can change the time of day if I want. Maybe we want it to run. What time is it now? It doesn't matter. I'll tell it to run at 3 in the morning. There we go. Hit OK. Enabled. Create. There we go. Let's run it. And that's it. Now we've done this in real time. Success. Already backed it up. And now if I need to, I can restore the metadata right here. I actually have a couple other ones from other systems in here. So yes, it's really simple to do. The SDM will auto do it with all your VLANs, try the interfaces you use are named correctly. Well, that's a given for any of them, yeah. The SDM will look for VRMB zeros and hosts. If you named a VRMB1, the new host it breaks. Okay. I see an absolute ton of XCP-NG in Europe as well, because XCP-NG's the Vates team is based out of France. Maybe replace active backup, but will Synology stop supporting? I don't have any idea. I haven't heard anything. You don't say you have the purpose of having 2,000 VMs. What is the purpose of having 2,000 VMs? Is that for end user OSs or something like that? Sometimes they're just large scale cloud companies that have that much hosting they do for all their applications. They've got it scaled out across a lot of VMs. One specific one that we worked on was every client that was a phone VM, I would call it. Each VM ran the tooling needed to run their phone system. That way everyone had an isolated virtual machine for every one of their clients' phone systems. Yeah, they are using. So I like Proxmox, the fact that it's all just Linux under the hood. So when there's been breakage in Proxmox, it's just pretty normal Linux. Yeah, I'll probably do some collaborations with them. Those are two great people. Catching up on all the. Yeah, I'd love to see config history backup and change like pfSense does. So that'd be a killer feature. I mean, I don't really need the change history stuff. I mean, I can keep many copies of the backups, but there's rarely a time I need to revert a config on XCP-NG, because I kind of showed you what a reverted config looks like by changing a VLAN, for example, and then changing it back, or creating a network. Like if someone were to change and break this lab by putting in the wrong VLAN ID, I would just change it back. Matter of fact, something kind of novel that is done here. She will stop this so I can clone it. People ask how I make things work here, watching it in real time. This one just stays running. I stop it for a clone. Then I'm going to add a tag to it. There you go, because it's one of my YouTube demos. And actually, this is the part I was going to show you. Demo. But maybe I didn't want to name it demo. They put the little undo, redo button so you can quickly rename things. So there's not really a need to, I don't worry as much about the config backup on here. Usually if something goes wrong, you just do that. And undo it and come back. One issue is some features of Proxmox are not yet UI integrated, and it gives the perception that features are missing. Most people won't dive into CLI. Yeah, that's a whole nother thing as well. Oh man, I mean, one of the larger customers, I think they spread across different resource pools. I think there are like 200 hosts across multiple data centers. This is where something like XCP-ng works well, for one pane of glass to manage all the different hosts across all the data centers and all the resource pools across all the data centers. This is where Proxmox, their new data center manager, is going to solve the problem that for Proxmox. But like I said, this is something that's been around it's a well-engineered, well-done system in XO, and it's made to do that. Thanks for answering. Wow, sounds like a lot involved to manage those VMs. Belated happy Xmas. Yes, absolutely. Thank you very much for your donation. It's greatly appreciated. Absolutely. Again, thank you for the donation. It's greatly appreciated. For example, a remote migration, move a VM between clusters, currently only CLI, or the button put a host in a maintenance mode is only CLI. Yeah. And with XO, you can move it between hosts in Proxmox data center. I mean, you can move it between clusters in Proxmox with their new data center manager. They're called pools inside of Zen, but it's the same concept. You can move a VM. You can even live move a VM between different systems. How do you do a metro cluster for storage? With OEM hardware, you can do active-active between data centers. If one storage or both controllers fails, one takes over without downtime. There are ways to do that. Was it called stretch clustering? There's ways you can synchronize it. That is outside the scope. I don't know that I have any of those set up between data centers, or I haven't consulted with anyone that's done that way. Ceph would probably be a way to do it. Hey, look right here. Go ahead and mess with Ceph because I'm a masochist. Yeah, Ceph can do some cool stuff, but yes. I just want to say thank you for creating content for noobs like me to learn some of this stuff and slowly building a ubiquity at home. Congratulations and awesome. I'm so glad it's helpful, and I wish you the best of luck on your Homelab journey. I think XO1 Master is a great way better to, yes, this is the problem that people have told me about. And I don't know the answer to this question. How much resources, and I've been told a lot, but I don't have a system big enough to try this. I've had people tell me the problem they ran into at scale with Proxmox was CoroSync. Now, if I'm not mistaken, the CoroSync system needs a fast network to avoid the problem. So there are known limitations with CoroSync that are overcome by having CoroSync essentially on a really fast dedicated network. Jay from Learn Linux TV, he's a friend of mine, and he's ran into some Proxmox problems, but they were a few years ago. And I think that some of those problems have been tuned or made better. So I don't know. Well, and this is where people say hardware support needs improvement, but I don't know what are you running that you're running into a hardware support issue? Back to, these are brand new brand new AMD EPYC servers that work fine with XCP-ng. So if it's good enough for a $400,000 data center project, it's probably good enough for other projects. But I've been running the system right here, for example. These are, what is this one? this is the B-Link system, and it runs fine on a B-Link. So I haven't really run into this hardware problem. It's got 2.5 gig connections on a B-Link, and it seems to work fine. So I'm not sure what you're missing out on with I mean, I see it as a word, and you're probably right. There's something in the newer kernel that is not going to be as, supported inside the XCP&G kernel. But what is that thing that stops people from using it is the question I have. Thank you very much for the donation. All of our great content, doing these live. I love doing these live streams. They're a lot of fun. I like being able to answer this many questions. Recommendation: moving away from help desk. I have an A+ and 2 years of experience, but not really sure where to go. I am not probably the most knowledgeable person about this, but people who generally move out of help desk, it's because they spent time solving the problems better, figuring out why things go from level 1 to level 2 techs, and try to solve it. And generally, if you work at a good place that you're getting noticed for being able to solve problems that normally would level 2, and you keep a good relationship with whoever your management people are, you can wander your way in there. Now, the part that's really hard is when you don't know where to go. I have a lesser answer for, because if you don't know which way you want to focus on, try each one until you strike a chord and go, this makes sense. This is what I enjoy more than others, whether that's virtualization, networking, whatever that may be, or security. That's a harder one for me to answer because not everything resonates the same way. Like, I do blue team security, but not red team. John Hammond, on the other hand, is super passionate, pretty popular YouTuber. I imagine a lot of you know, and I know him personally. John is super passionate on the red team side and does a lot of videos on it, sharing his passion because that's the direction he went in. So there's not an easy answer in terms of which way to pursue. Carl Sink wants a low latency LAN. Yes, it's better to split clusters into per site locations rather than one huge cluster. It's just that thing about supporting it makes Ceph hard to recommend. Buying from a vendor, doing proprietary stuff is unfortunately easier. If you buy a support contract from 45 Drives, you can have support with Ceph, and that's something that's an option. Interesting that CoreSync uses that much. See, these are interesting tidbits. I need to run a Proxmox cluster so I can learn more about that. Yeah, the mini PCs, the Proxmox, the XCP&G mini PCs. I have a B-Link, and I have, this is one of those weird Ace Magic ones, but the AMD Ryzen's in them, but no problem, works great. Interesting. This is something I'll have to test at some point, is really do a processor level comparison, run the workload, reload it, run the workload again, and try it. That's on my to-do list to do that. It's just time consuming. Oh yeah, Ceph is much more integrated into to Proxmox for sure. I tried to work to buy a couple 45 drive Professional Pro 15 or HL57 to replace our aging ReadyNAS and QNAP, but they were priced outside of my budget. The quality they offer does not come for cheap. It comes reasonably priced, I think, but it's definitely not cheap. Can I put a pie hole on VLAN and TrueNAS scale, and how can I make a satisfactory server when it's not on TrueNAS? The problem right now is there is no, for the containers, any virtualization support. So if you're using the containers, the Docker containers inside of TrueNAS, they just don't have, and I don't know when it's on the roadmap, if ever. Maybe ever is a bit much, but it's not currently on the roadmap that I've seen to fix that. Maybe next year, but I didn't see it unless someone points out that I've overlooked it. But it's absolutely not supported today. Now, can you do it from the command line? Yes. It's better to build your own server running Docker, build your own virtual machine running Docker that gives you all the flexibility you're looking for. As a matter of fact, if you're looking for a good Docker manager, there's Dockage and there's Portainer. Portainer is neat. Someone complained about it. I don't use it every day. Someone complained that they've upped what they want for the enterprise version of Portainer and they've removed some of the features from the free one. I don't really know if those features are ones that matter to you, but one thing I'll say about Portainer is I think it made Docker networking a little bit easier for people. So, I mean, you can of course manage from the command line, but that's where the challenge comes in. People who go, I'm kind of a casual person and I'd rather do something else. I don't want to learn Docker from the command line. Portainer is a nice UI to put on top of that. That might be the solution that works really well for you. I hope. Dockage is not maintained anymore. Huh. Well, that seems like an odd thing to say. I mean, it says it was updated 13 hours ago. So who's updating it? Weird thing to say. I mean, here's notes and commits. I'm going to go with you must be mistaken. But have you tried Podman? Seems different approach to Docker and runs rootless. I've not gotten around to it. Oh, yeah, Veronica's right, man. As soon as something doesn't have an update in 12 hours, clearly it must be an unsupported package. Where's that stupid yeah. Here. There we go. Has an update in 12 hours. Must not be supported. That's probably not the right meme for that, but it made me laugh anyways. This is another thing. At some point, I don't like updates for the sake of updates. There's a lot of times people seem to want updates for the sake of updates, and I don't know. They're like, Tom, it hasn't had an update. I'm like, does it need one? Well, I like updates. If I don't see updates, it must mean it's completely abandoned. I'm like, well, if it only does a certain limited number of things, I mean, it'd be nice to always have new features, but yeah. I cannot push time in open source projects this year. Hopefully I can pick up these projects again next year after upcoming TM2 has been released. But that doesn't mean it's not supported. It just means it's not getting new features. And by the way, it's open source and other people can contribute. So there's clearly updates coming in to it. It may not get many new features for a while, but not getting new features for a little while is not the same as an unsupported dead project. I do like that they're working on Uptime Kuma. That's awesome. When removing dockets from TrueNAS, be careful to remove the containers first, else they remain persistent. TrueNAS, removing them from the GUI gives an error. Yeah. Screening Docker on containers, more of a sysadmin developer job. I have an installation tutorial. I'm not sure if it benefits as a sysadmin from tuning That's a good question. It all depends on what your job position is. There's some blurred lines there for sure. I wouldn't 100% call them one or the other. Yeah, and I'm positive if you were to write really good code and contribute to the dockage, he might accept some pull requests. Yeah. DevOps. I mean, as a sysadmin, you generally work on the underlying things, but this is where I say there's a little bit of a blurry line, because you may be, as a sysadmin, supporting a bunch of developers who will continue using an outdated container because they can't be bothered. They write code, not fix containers. So updating that container may be your problem. And I say your problem because as a sysadmin, somewhere along the lines, you may have the security hat on, or maybe you're lucky enough to be in a big enough company to have that as a separate team. So, running the outdated, possibly full of breakage, Docker container can be a problem. So you, to keep your network secure and your developers developing, you may have to update the Docker container for them. So my favorite is actually DevOps. That's where you really learn the hard lessons. It's called not DevOps, DevOps, because these large scalable tools like Ansible and Terraform let you oops at scale in amazing ways. It's absolutely crazy how insane, like Kubernetes or things like that. When things go wrong and things go wrong at scale, it's amazing. It's like you can break so many things at once with this one update. Oh, that's where the real learning happens. Yeah, we are coming up. Well, no, I can't say. Oh yeah, we definitely. There's a reason I'm preaching for people not to build these Rube Goldberg systems of unsupportability, because I'm preaching against myself. You're right. I say, please don't build complicated storage systems with routed storage. Please don't use Kubernetes when you need to run two things in Docker. I say that, but honestly, I make a living off of unraveling the messes that people have made. My favorite ones, though, are not those. My preferred living is when someone comes to me with a greenfield project and says, please design this in a proper way so it will work well. Oh, thank you. This sounds great. Let's pursue that. Yes. Must build Rube Goldberg way. Like, I think it's a fun thought experiment. I've built complicated things. I've had a long career in IT. Sometimes I had to build complicated things because it was the only way to do it. But I'm always trying to tear things down to the simpler way. Oh yeah, if a system takes a lot of time to maintain and you don't have time to maintain it, go with something easier. Yes. Or the story of the unraveling the Proxmox Ceph cluster. Me and Brett Kelly from 45 Drives last Thursday, we talked about the unraveling of Ceph problems. And yes, I started out that whole meeting, that whole live stream started out with a story about people who contacted us about a knocked over Ceph cluster, because why not? I also have, back when TrueNAS Scale was using Kubernetes, I've had to recover people who lost data there too. They just didn't think it through, is the best way I can describe it. They came up with a way to do it, not the right way. And when it broke, they lost all their data because they had no backups of any of it. The good news is the data was there. It just was inaccessible. So we had to reattach the built-in TrueNAS Scale storage to figure out where their data was so we could extract it to where they wanted it to be, which was back in their possession, essentially, not muddled in a convoluted system. I think it goes back to what you were talking about last week. Why do people make things more complicated than they need to be? Make it more complicated as it needs to be to accomplish the mission. Yes. Yeah. You always start with that, and your tech career will definitely go better. Everyone thinks, or not everyone, a lot of people, certainly not everyone, because I'm not among them. And I know a lot of other great technical people. I never want to sound too negative. I certainly see an amount of negativity, but there's a lot of technical people who definitely understand the fundamentals and do things well. But there's those people that want to prove they're smarter. I think this is what's in their head. I want to show that I can build the most complicated system that I only can maintain, and that sometimes doesn't go well. Here's another anecdote I'll share before we wind down this live stream. One of the problems I had run into was someone had built at a university. They were a really, I got a hats off to the kid. I say kid because he's in his 20s and I'm almost 50. But hats off to him, the fact that he managed all of their firewalls with custom Linux across the campus. They had a all done by hand firewall where he started with Linux and then built it all. And the problem is he did this as a college student / while going to university, and that's all fine. The problem is he couldn't find anyone to maintain it, and he wanted to get a job in corporate America, and he was leaving the college. And so they contacted me, and I'm like, you've now built like an difficult to manage system. They go, yeah, we're having trouble finding anyone who understands all of it. And he had documentation, but it's documentation where all the rules he had written, he didn't even tie it all together with Ansible or anything like that. He just went in and logged in and done a whole series of rules and VPNs and all kinds of things, all from the command line with no backups, by the way. Smart enough to do it, hard to find a replacement that could manage all of that. And we told him we could manage it. We knew how to do it, but what we would charge was a lot. And that the better solution was to actually replace it with a more manageable firewall system. So that's where some of the problems. Speaking of Proxmox, but Steph, any experience with you could share with XCP&G, lint store, replication, block storage? No, I got to do some videos on that. That is on my to-do list to build a hyper-converged system. On my to-do list, that'll happen next year. I am building a new lab with a lot of new stuff, and that's going to be among the new stuff in there. But which one do I do first? Do I play with the hyper-converged storage, or do I play with the Proxmox idea I talked about earlier? Because a lot of people have questions around it. Yes, custom endpoint. The single point of failure was the person wanting to leave the job was creating the single point of failure. That's not an easy question to answer. Watch last week because we talk about that. It's like an hour. It's about an hour long, and me and Brett Kelly dive into a lot of those topics. So we dive into that. I think it's a myth thinking you automate yourself out of a job. I just haven't seen that over the years. I automate everything, and I haven't automated myself out of a job. It just allows me to do more. Oh, yes. All the people, I want to use all the protocols. To uncomplicate my small home lab, I would just want to keep with on RAID, but I'm not happy with the annual cost. I support ZFS, which is my biggest need for information security. I don't think on RAID's that expensive. What does it cost? I don't know. I think it's a decent system for the pricing. That doesn't seem unreasonable to me. Perpetual license, free OS updates for a year. I mean, $49 a year seems pretty cheap, but I don't know what your budget is. So what seems cheap to me may not be cheap to you. And of course, I'm measuring in US dollars. You may not be. And if you live outside the US and you have a much lower median income in your area, that may not be a lot. So I don't really, you're not happy with the AI. I don't know. I mean, it takes money to develop software. Unraid seems to be in business because they figured it out. I worry about some of the other companies over time. So yes, LinStore DRDB has way less overhead than Ceph. You are correct. I think I need to cover the problem with hyperconverged. This is where people don't understand. Hyperconverged does not necessarily perform as well, and it's more expensive. This is the same argument I had with Ceph, and me and Brett Kelly talked about this last week. To build Ceph to get the same performance that I would get with the ZFS system requires more hardware, which means to build a performant Ceph system requires more money than to build a performant ZFS system. The same thing with hyperconverged. Hyperconverged, if I want the data synced across 3 nodes with hyperconverged, I have to write to node A, and then it has to write to nodes B and C. That means I have to have something that can perform the writes at the same speed. So I am slowing down my writes to save on data integrity. That's fine, but that is fine until it's not. Once people go, but I need performance, and I'm like, yeah, that is the thing. Where's your bottleneck on this? You can absolutely build a hyper-converged system that performs well. Costs extra money because you got to build faster hardware versus maybe a separate storage server. I tested LinStore DRBD since they support Proxmox. It worked good, but Proxmox updates failed because LinStore kernel module is not compatible with the new kernel. Yes. And these are fine until you're running it in production. So at least they fixed it fast. I mean, they seem to be very actively developed. One thing I don't know, and maybe someone can find this stat and email it to me at homelab at lawrencesystems.com. How many people work at Proxmox? Is it a big team? How big is their dev team? They don't. And if I'm wrong about this, let me know. Does Proxmox show up at any of the open source events? They seem to be kind of a mystery. They don't, like, Vates is extremely transparent, public. They're on LinkedIn. They're on Twitter. They post all the time. They're at open source events. They're speaking at conferences. Like, the Vates team is very community oriented. The Proxmox team seems to be very busy in their forums. Do they also do community oriented things? I'm asking because I don't know. Ceph is more expensive hardware, but it's a good way to get high availability without buying into large traditional stands with proprietary hardware. Oh yeah, I think Ceph is amazing. I don't tell people not to use Ceph. I tell people to understand what it costs in hardware to get the performance they're looking for. It's a Proxmox. That Proxmox does not communicate publicly. I've never seen a face. I've heard other people talk about that a little bit. Oh, it's a problem. Okay. I've had other people tell me the same thing about them, is that they're kind of a black box. They reply via email only, and that's it. That does worry me about, like, Vates is a larger actual entity, corporate company with a very, like, Vates serves on the Linux Foundation board too, by the way, because Zen is a Linux Foundation project. Vates is involved in that. That gives you kind of the warm fuzzies that you've got a team of people working on something. It's not pivotal on a few smart people. Because the problem with things that are very pivotal on only a small number of people is if something happens to one of those small number of people, we suddenly don't get updates or support. What does the longevity look like? I don't know. That's kind of, I hate to say this because obviously VMware is a bad example, but no one was really worried until VMware got bought. That's your worry about these corporate companies, but no one was worried that VMware would just poof out of existence. It actually might have been easier if they did poof out of existence, because it seems to be Broadcom buying them and destroying them made it really much harder for people to swallow, because they screwed over everybody. Oh, I didn't know Proxmox had YouTube videos. And one thing Veronica's right about here, one reason to choose KVM QEU is it's easy to figure out who's, well, the other thing about the way the underlying system works with Proxmox, jump to the command line and do all the things. You're not loading up anything too weird. It's all Linux. It's all running on Debian. So Proxmox, from a Linux nerd standpoint, if you're a good Linux nerd and you're good at Linux, you can figure Proxmox out from the command line without their web UI. I missed the FreeBSD version of TrueNAS. Yeah. And unfortunately, with FreeBSD kind of dying, it's a thing. Money isn't a big issue for me, but I've already overspent on Homelab because I'm learning as I go. Just your standard 40 plus retired Navy nerd. Fair. And very much thank you for the donation there. I do keep meaning to try XO Discover. I might want to switch. If you have questions about XO, Veronica, ping me. Or if you just DM me on Discord or whatever. But it's not too hard. It's a different concept, but once you've played around with it, it's novel. I like the scalability of it. Proxmox team is on a lot of events in Austria and Germany, not unknown IT company, especially in Austria. Well, that's fair. That's what I'm curious about. I don't know enough about them. There's not a lot that I've seen, at least from their site. There's not a lot of public available information. They've been around for a while, since 2005. They've been doing this since 2008, so yeah, plenty of years in the market. Says they're hiring. That's good. They're hiring a lot of people. Like I said, I got nothing against them. I just don't know a lot about them. I know they have a LinkedIn. I've never looked at their YouTube channel. Okay, cool. So they do have a YouTube channel. Yeah, I talked about that earlier. I think this is a great feature that they're adding. Oh yeah, that's one of the things about doing international consulting. People from a lot of European places speak really good English and always apologize. Sorry for my English. It may not be perfect. I'm like, you speak better than most Americans. That's like my reply. I have the majority of them. You can use TrueNAS as a backend, but TrueNAS is a 100% separate project from XCP-ng. Does XO backup compression and deduplication? What backup throughput can generally achieve? The backups, they aren't going to do deduplication across multiple VMs. It's only going to do when you're doing the backups. And I have a whole video on Proxmox backup, or sorry, not Proxmox, XCP-ng backups that dives deeper into this. But they do support compression on the backups. And they're all integrated. And when you're doing, because they support the incremental backups, you end up with the, let me go to the restore right here. You also have all the chains with the keys in here. So you can see that it's only going to do the changes with the incremental, and then you have the differencing and the backups. So you get a lot of storage efficiency out of the backups, but it's not going to deduplicate across multiple VMs. It doesn't have that feature. When it comes to development of Proxmox, compare the tool to manage. I use manage pfSense installs. Yeah, DynaFi is interesting. They've been around for a little while too, doing like pfSense management. I'm an Aussie, and the Austrians. I know are way more elegant English than I am. Yeah. Yeah, the Proxmox backup server does have a dedupe system in there. You can also point your backups at a TrueNAS server and turn dedupe on there. They're just not doing dedupe at the block level in the same way. Do you say I subscribe? Because I've been Learning about how to run and optimize my NAS from you and a couple other creators, including Veronica. Absolutely. Veronica Explains has some great videos. He was looking at ZFS replication options for my TrueNAS earlier today. Yes. Proxmox does linked clones. Can XCP do that as well? And would you do? Oh yeah, linked clones are easy inside of here. That's what this is. When you're doing, well, this is what's neat. This is a harder one to easily show, but this is a linked clone. But if I migrate it, it will automatically unlink the clone. So you don't have the linked clone problem. You get the efficiencies of linked clones without the challenges of linked clones. So for example, let's go ahead and stop this. And let's build some more linked clones. So here's our Debian 12 demo. Let's make 2 clones. Clone again. So each of these are linked clones now. Demo clone, and we'll call this one clone 2. This one is clone 1. Now, the part that's interesting is I shouldn't be able to delete this if they're a linked clone, but I can. I can just go remove. Now, when we go to the storage, it's already started. This is an NVMe, so it's doing it almost instantly. What's happening is it automatically forked the clones and will coalesce into the new one. What you're seeing on the front end, it will happen in a queue in the back end. So you can have these linked clones and then delete them. So even though we are fast cloning, not making a copy, we can copy them. That's different. If we fast clone and make so many copies of them as well, it will build linked clones out of them. But I can break the linked clones immediately, and it doesn't care. It'll figure it out on the back end for me, but I'm getting all the storage advantage of linked clones. That it's kind of hard to wrap your head around until you've actually used it. The problem with Proxmox backups PBS is that a fresh VM boot, Proxmox reads the entire disk before generating bitmap for any future backups, making it long for virtual disks. Trying to decide the way to go for a 3-system cluster to have something in data and Docker, and go the route that will easily skill change your IT professional provider. Go that way. I didn't see TrueNAS is probably a simpler way to do it. There is demand in the market for people who know the more complicated things. Kind of depends on what kind of job you're going for or how much you want to learn. I will say that Unraid is not really used in the business market that I've seen. I've never run into an Unraid outside of the home user market. So TrueNAS, obviously, because we sell a ton of it to the enterprise market. I mean, we've been doing consulting for years with TrueNAS, right up to there are several Fortune 1000 companies that we have consulted with that are regular, buy consulting time from us about their TrueNAS setups. But the more you can learn with all three is the better. When I build a new Proxmox server, what is the best way to transfer my current Proxmox VMs? I don't know the answer to that. I'm assuming a lot of people will probably say, and I've not done this, but the Proxmox backup server, back them up and restore them on another Proxmox. That probably makes a lot of sense, but I've not done this, so I don't really know. But I'm 3.5 hours in. I'm going to run out of voice here soon, so I'm going to wind this down. Thank you, everyone. And by the way, Homelab at lawrencesystems.com. Reach out and say hi. Show me a picture of your setup. So show me your Homelab. Always interested in hearing from all of you. interact in my forums.lawrencesystems.com. That's a great place for things. But like I said, I've got people who emailed me already while we were doing this, and that's fantastic. So thank you for all of that. And here, to show you that I can do it, let's which one? We'll delete clone 2 first. Actually, no, we should delete clone 1. So if we stop, we'll do this. I gotta clean up the messes I make. I definitely sometimes create a lot of VMs and then forget about them. So if we do this, we click on it fast enough. There we go. There's the extra piece. It's going to fix this in a moment. It'll coalesce. What it's building now is the chain of clones, and they're coalescing. Proxmox actually gives you warnings about it. If I'm not mistaken, I don't know what the status is now, but this is how coalescing happens with linked clones. It's kind of just magical. It just happens in the background automatically. But I'll go ahead and stop this one. I just don't need it anymore. But now you get an idea of what happens. If I remove this one, go to storage. I think it's this one here. Oh, it's now, they coalesced. Wait, or is it this storage? Yeah, they're done. They coalesced. They coalesce fast on NVMEs. Well, they coalesce fast when there's not a lot of I/O. Proxmox link clones seem to be designed to be permanent. Yeah, no, that. Ever delete an important one by accident? The way I avoid that, it's easier to show you how I have it. First, they're going to be tagged with the word production or critical production, and you just turn on this feature here that you can say protect from deletion, and that will stop something from if I try to delete it, you'll get a warning. You can't just bulk delete things that have that box checked. So yeah. So that's my way of avoiding accidental deletion of things. Just check that box. But that particular server is a production one that only I run. I'm not as worried about it. No one else has admin on it. So yeah. All right. Thank you, everyone. Take care. See you next time.